Welcome to the David Bradley Show with your host, David Bradley.
Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing today? We are back with Omada Films. Our first little show got all kind of hijacked and screwed up and everything else because of the audio, which you would think somebody that used to be in audio would have fixed, but we've got it fixed now. So
it happens.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. I'm glad y'all came back.
Oh,
it was fun, yeah.
It's nice to have friends that actually come back.
We're gluttons. We come back for more.
Oh, Lord. Man, I love these cups. This dude did a good job.
Yeah, he did. He did. He's a good man.
And I love his sign, man.
Our merch. We have merch.
Everybody's got merch now.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm going to get my little site up and everybody can start getting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I might add some stuff. I don't know. But it's pretty cool.
Very cool.
All right. So, Omada Films is with us today. And we've got Thomas Marino and Jason Cunningham. Kind of indie type guys out of Nashville doing some movies and some, y'all did some short films and just having all kinds of fun, I guess.
We're trying. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, the last time y'all was here, we were talking about These Streets We Haunt, which is the major movie that y'all came out with. And all that was off the books. And then I went online after y'all left and was looking up. And it's pretty cool. Y'all got those books on Amazon, all of them, from the Lamp.
The Lamp series, that's right.
How long did it take you to write them?
The first book came out 2012, and I think it's a 4-book fantasy series, and the last book came out in 2015.
Say, I ain't got patience to write like that.
It takes a bit of patience, too, especially when you do a series, because going into it, if the first book flops, you don't have the rest of them, you know? And so I had to kind of put a lot of hope in that first book, and it did well. So I was able to write, the other 3.
Yeah, because I'm probably going to buy them because I like them.
Good. I hope you do.
Because I like the movie so much. But how did y'all get started? I mean, last time we talked about y'all two, how y'all met, which I thought it was a funny story, and then it got all screwed up in the audio.
We can retell it.
I mean, if y'all want to.
Yeah.
It'd be great. I'm sure a lot of people will be like,
Thomas, you want to talk about it? You've told this story so many times. You might be tired.
He's actually getting good at it.
Yeah, I'm finally getting the hang of it here now.
I like hearing it still. So.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, it's the truth, so it's not a problem reiterating. I don't know exactly what year, but I'm going to guesstimate about 2004. Does that sound right?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay. About 2004, Jason and I met at it was a kind of a men's cell group through a church that he and
it sounds like a cult. It was a Bible study group at a Starbucks.
Yeah, okay. Whatever. Yeah. So we met at this Bible study group at Starbucks, and I don't know, we just kind of hit it off, and we did a lot of talking. Nothing specific, just kind of all over the map. And it was, I guess, funny about it is the fact that Jason was probably, 22, 23 maybe?
Let's see, if this was 2004, I was 25.
Oh, okay.
But you always think I'm younger than I am.
I do.
He still calls me a kid, and I'm 44.
Yeah, he still looks good.
Yeah, but he don't even look that old. I mean, he's like an eternal light here on him. I mean, he's just...
You're so kind.
Yeah.
Well, so he was 40 or 23, you said?
25.
25. It's great.
Yeah, and I was, I think, 47 at the time. So, again, we had a nice conversation and kind of parted company. Now, we did exchange info.
Right.
So he had my number and so forth. I had his. Several months later that I recall, Jason called me up and essentially asked me if I remembered him. And I said, yeah, I sure do. And I think what stuck in my mind about Jason was he was, for a young man, he was very intelligent. He was extremely articulate, just very knowledgeable, not only from a biblical stance and so forth, but just overall.
Right.
And I was impressed. I mean, I just have to admit, I was impressed. And so when he called me, we kind of talked, and I wasn't sure what his motives were, but he basically said that as a result of us talking and meeting, he was working on a film project, and he said he liked my personality. He said, I like your character. I like, who you are. He said, and as a result, I wrote a part in my film that I believe, you could play. Now,
was that back when you was doing, you hadn't even done any shorts yet, have you?
I'd done one at this point, and Thomas, I think, had one acting class.
I had actually 3 acting classes.
Well,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, yeah, come on now. That's the thing is when he, mentioned that, I thought to myself, well, he said, I heard through the grapevine that you're an actor. And I said, look, I don't want to lie to this kid, right? So I told him, I said, look, in all honesty, full disclosure, I took 3 lessons and I quit. And I said, so an actor, I'm not. At any rate, he still, proceeded to talk about the role, and he didn't get real specific, but I was curious, and I thought, well, I'm not going to do the part because I'm not an actor, but I'm curious what he had in mind. So he said, being that you're from New York, he said, it's right up your alley. And I said, excuse me, I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania.
Same difference.
A little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, but you got that New York attitude kind of coming across every now and then.
Maybe so, but I think mostly to just Southern folks, not a slam, but just kind of, they hear the kind of East Coast thing and they think New York.
No, I think Italian in New York.
Yeah. New York Italian. Okay. Guilty. I'm a PA Italian, whatever.
Well, I mean, the Italian kind of side of you, I mean, you do talk with your hands a lot. And a lot of Southern people do that.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think people are all that much different. It's more about the inflection in the voice and, the cadence and so forth.
It's the attitude.
It's the attitude. Yeah.
You got to have the attitude.
So anyway, the bottom line was I was still curious. He said, being that you're from New York, I think it's right up your alley. And then I tell him I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania. And I said, but what was the part? And he said, a car thief from Brooklyn, New York. So, I kind of thought I'm going to play with him a little bit. I said, oh, I get it. Because I'm Italian. All of a sudden, I'm a friggin' thief, huh?
Yeah.
And he goes, no. I said, no, I'm just messing with you. I'm just teasing, okay? I said, that's interesting. I said, I suppose I could be a freaking car thief from Brooklyn if you really want me to,
Right.
And so the bottom line was he cast me in the role. I did the role. And I fell in love with this guy. I mean, it sounds weird maybe. I don't know. But I just something about him, I thought, I want to help this guy and I want to partner with him. He's a young man. He's got ambition. He's got drive. He's got talent. I want to be, do something of value in his life.
Right.
So I asked him after we got done shooting, I said, hey, so is there anything you need? He said, I said, I had to qualify. First off, I'm nobody. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a truck driver. I'm not, money bags, nothing. I said, but if I can help you in any way, I would love to do it. What can I do for you?
Well, you do have a talent for that.
Well, I didn't realize it at the time. You have to understand, I just had a desire.
Yeah.
Didn't really realize that it was a thing. Okay. So he started explaining a couple things. Well, now naturally money, right? He needed an actor for a specific role. And
which he wrote you into.
Well, no, this was another actor that I knew.
Okay.
That I brought him on board. And at the time, she wasn't my wife, but she was my bookkeeper. I brought her on board to kind of help with the business side because Jason, very creative guy, but not so much in the business area. And so I thought, well, we'll do what we can do to help. Anyway, the long and the short of it was within, I guess, 3 weeks, maybe a month, kind of, brought these things to the table, and he was ecstatic. And he said, you've done more in like 3 weeks than I've been able to accomplish. And he did have a kind of a quasi partner at the time, really nice guy. What was his name? I can't remember his first name.
Let's not.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
he was a nice guy. He was really a nice guy, though. And he said, but the bottom line is, we what you've done in 3 weeks has been, impressive. And so I thought, oh well, okay, that's nice. And he said, would you consider being my business partner? And I said, Jason, you're a nice kid, but I'm a truck driver. Okay. I don't know anything about, motion pictures. I said, business. Yeah, I got a few things on the side I do and so forth, but
oh no, driving a truck, we know everything about everything.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, any truck driver you ever met, he knows everything. But anyway, so I guess we basically came to the point where I thought, well, he did say something that impressed me, because I told him I really don't have a background in that, don't know anything about making film, but he looked at me very confident and he said, look, I can teach you how to make film.
Yeah.
What I can't teach is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what do you mean what I do? He said, what you do naturally. He said, you're an executive producer. I said, what's that? And he proceeded to explain, that this is a guy or gal that brings people to the table, brings money, resources, and helps get a project, rolling. And so I thought, well, if he's willing to teach this old guy how to do this thing, I'm willing to learn. And
well,
so
yeah, I mean, that's something I've noticed, even just going through the process that I'm going through. I've been learning a lot, and from talking to you and a couple of times me and Jason has talked about stuff, it is really amazing where you've got to start. You can't just jump into something with both feet. I mean, you've got to have an actual plan. You've got to have somebody that can work certain avenues of it, and then you've got to be able to follow through with your avenues. And I mean, it's a lot of time consuming in just getting something up and going.
It is. It's kind of like we've got our first feature film under our belt. It's been streaming on currently 4 or 5 different platforms.
Yeah, I think when I looked it up, it was on Amazon and
we're on Tubi.
Yeah, there's
Google
Tubi.
Play.
Google
YouTube
Play.
is getting us a lot of traction right now, which is a platform I didn't have a lot of confidence in when our distributor first wanted to put us up there. It's not a prestige platform, like maybe some of the others are, but we've actually found an audience there, and we have like 250,000 views just on YouTube.
Well, that's something I've noticed. I mean, I've talked to especially a lot of the younger generation where we used to do cable TV. These guys are just doing internet, and they're wearing out YouTube, and there's all kinds of platforms that they're hitting, and they just live on the daggum stuff all day long. It's amazing to me.
Right. Well, along with that thought of how the process works, here we are, give or take, 16 years later, and we've got our first feature, so we're like overnight success. It's only taken 16 years.
It's worth noting, though, that when we first started, this was in the mid-2000s, and the technology was so different back then.
Oh, God, yes.
We were talking about when we were budgeting our first feature, which I think was called Charlie Plum. We had a screenplay. We had some producers attached, but we had line items for 35 millimeter film.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a completely different world. When we made Streets, we were shooting on technology that didn't exist until just a few years before that.
Right.
And technology has been a huge boon to actually getting stuff made, whereas the biggest hurdle we had in the early 2000s was fundraising, because the smallest indie drama back then would have cost like $250,000.
Well, everything was done on 35 millimeter, right?
35 or 16, yeah.
And
my
then
first
they
short
did
film was on 16.
I think they went through that phase where a lot of it was on 8 millimeter, and then they went to the bigger stuff, the 35 millimeter, and I think
16 was really big in the 70s.
Yeah,
indie stuff. It still is. I mean, people still shoot on 16 just for the aesthetic of it.
Right.
And there's people who shoot on like a red camera and then try to degrade the footage to look like 16 because there's an aesthetic that works for some stories. But yeah, so much has changed when it comes to just what you do as a production company, because in the 2000s we were fundraising the whole time.
Right.
And so if you look at our history and you say, okay, they've been around for 15, 16 years, and they've made one feature film.
Yeah.
Well, the reason is because we spent most of that time pitching and writing and developing things.
Not to mention, you had a JOB and I have a JOB, so we're busy
we've always
working.
been just these kind of working stiffs who moonlight as creative people, and it takes some of the pressure off in a way because your livelihood doesn't depend on you getting a film made.
Right. I mean, you've got that income coming in. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, we actually enjoy what we're doing because there's not a lot of pressure. I mean, there's innate pressures that occur, but certainly not necessarily monetary pressures that, you're worried about paying your mortgage or whatever.
Yeah, and pitching a movie too. I mean, God, I remember you'd see things about, okay, this movie's going to come out, but they would pitch that movie for a year or 2 years before the thing ever even went into production.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Well, I think we had a budget with Charlie Plum of, what was it, like a couple $1 million or something?
I think our lowest was around $500,000.
Yeah.
And that was pretty bare bones. And of course, that's shooting on 35 with a full crew, kind of a Hollywood style production.
And that's a big production.
Oh, it's a
That's a
huge
big
production for
production.
independence, especially when we've learned since then that you don't always get paid when you do a film.
This is something we could spend a lot of time talking about.
Yeah, you think you make a film, you're going to become a multimillionaire or something. I mean, we didn't have delusions that way, but the point is you think you're going to get some kind of revenue stream. Thankfully, we've got a revenue stream with our film that we have out, but generally with what we had previously done, there was no, I wouldn't say there wasn't a market for it, but it was just...
well, it was short form content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't really make short films in order to make money. It doesn't.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
We did screeners. We did short films for the possibility of showing somebody that this is what we have in mind for a feature.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a decent chunk of what we were producing. Actually, was we would take a full feature screenplay, and then we would say, okay, how do we turn this into like a 5-minute short film that kind of gives the idea of the larger project. And we shot a few of those. The last one I did was like in 2016, and we call those a proof of concept. And that's generally when people are too busy to read your script, but they'll sit down for 5 minutes and watch a clip, and so that was the idea. And those are much easier to produce. And it's just a visual thing you can show people to say, this is the idea we're trying to pull off.
Right.
Just imagine a bigger version of this.
Well, that's what they do in the big movies too, don't they? Don't they do like a little, kind of like a preview of it, and
not necessarily unlike a demo,
right?
Music biz. Okay.
Well, yeah, because you got to put
I mean, that's essentially what it is.
You put together that whole 4-track demo, and you get it out there, and you shop it around to everybody.
Exactly.
And they all laugh about it and don't even listen to it. So.
Right. Yeah.
But I will say we never had any success funding those larger projects through shooting the proof of concept. We got into rooms and we pitched people, but nothing ever came of it.
Yeah. Right. And who knows what it was? Was it the fact that they looked at us, we were just a bunch of nobodies? You don't know. They don't ever tell you exactly why they decline or,
Sometimes they do.
Well, sometimes.
You wish they didn't.
Yeah. Right. We did have one at Starbucks, didn't we? Yeah, he was pretty blatant. Yeah, God bless
I can
him.
imagine, a lot of them would be like, oh, well, they've got no money to do this, so go away.
When you think about the kind of money that's involved, and you're talking to somebody across the table from you going, I'm worth $2.5 million to take a shot on something you may not get a return on. I mean,
you need me to sign something? Here you go.
Right. I'll give you nothing that I got. 'Cause I got nothing right now. But again, so that's the beauty of what's transpired over the last 16 years, that we finally came to the place in our craft, if you will, that Jason had a story and he was sold on it completely, and I kind of threw a fleece out to him and said, okay, if you're really all that hip on this thing, come on over to my house and sell it to me, because I read the script and quite honestly, I wasn't on board.
Yeah.
The setup to this is, though, that we were talking about self-funding a project where he and I would kind of go in as partners and fund the movie ourselves.
Right.
So I ended up pitching him, which was a new experience because it was usually he and I together going into
Yeah. Yeah, the self-funding thing, right? So what happened on that prior to the pitch was we talked and I said, at this point in our lives, I can see, not nobody's going to hand us $1 million, okay, to say, go do a movie.
I wish they would me.
Yeah. But so we've seen that and we've been down that road. So what are we going to do? We've got a problem here that we don't really have a resolution to if we're going to reach out to somebody else. Why not consider the possibility of putting our own skin in the game? I said, the fact of the matter is, how can we expect anybody to believe in us if we don't believe in ourselves enough to put our own money in the game?
Well,
and that's where, we both talked about it and we both came to the agreement after speaking to both of our wives. And we decided, but again, I asked him to come pitch it to me because I wasn't feeling it. And he did. I got on board. We got motivated. And
I think that was a 2-hour pitch, too. It was there for a while.
Yeah. Well, when I write a check as big as that check was, for me, it was a lot of money.
Well, yeah.
I don't have deep pockets like Jason here.
Uh-huh.
But the point was, it was just like, this is a lot of money. And the other thing we had to convince both our wives is we're going to lay this cash out, but the ROI on this thing may be zipperoo, so donut hole. Are we willing to do that? And my wife looked at me and said, we did that with family members, so no big deal, right? You give them the money and you're not getting it back, so yeah.
Yeah, it's like going to the wife and going, honey, I need a bass boat.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think a bass boat costs more than we spent on the whole movie. It was still a pretty small budget when you compare it to so-called indies that are out there that have $3 million budgets. And they're still lumped in with movies like ours, which we made for like $30,000. Yeah. So,
but they got to do the same process that y'all go through every time, right? You got to go out, you got to pitch the idea, sell it, get investors.
Well, we've talked about that. We've tried to determine from other filmmakers, how are they getting their funding? And we actually had a great conversation with a local filmmaker, and he spent like 3 hours with us, and he's got a totally unique bent on this whole process. Truthfully, it's probably not something that Jason or I could make manifest, but
I don't know. You got that panache, man. Yeah. I mean, you could do it.
So far, this panache has gotten me nothing in all the pitching we've done. But
it got these streets. Come on.
No.
That's a good movie.
But we did it on our own, is what I'm saying. Going out and trying to pitch, no, forget it. And I like it better this way. I really do. I don't feel bad about risking my own money. I feel bad about risking your money.
Right.
That would bother me. Okay. Unless you got deep pockets. I got a friend of mine had a film that he'd produced. It was a documentary, and it was just shy of $1 million film. And he had
budget was $1 million.
Yeah, he had 2 investors on that film.
I think one guy.
One guy. Okay.
Wow.
Laid out the money and literally fed and supported him, my filmmaker friend, for 8 years.
About 8 years, yeah.
And then finally the film got released. But my point is that in his case, because the guy was a multimillionaire, he didn't have any issues with regard to the fact that the guy made next to nothing off the film. In fact, I'm not bragging, just saying, I've got that film. I've got the rights to it.
Thomas is the sole distributor.
I'm the sole distributor in the world.
And one of the stars of the film is the now famous Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Fauci, yeah.
Oh,
he's
Lord.
in the film. Yeah. It's funny because after the film had run its course in the eyes of the investors,
right,
they just said, we're just divesting ourselves of it. I mean, we're walking away. And so I looked at my buddy. I said, well, what are you going to do with the film? Me, I'm always looking for an opportunity, right?
Well, yeah.
And he said, I don't know. I said, well, why don't we sell it? And he goes, how are we going to do that? I said, well, at the time I had a nutrition company on the web. I said, I'll put it on my nutrition site. I had an Amazon.com store at the time. I said, I'll put it on there. I said, we'll see what we can do. Okay. So without getting into a lot of details, I'm wanting to give him, say, well, we'll do a 70-30 split. You get 70, I get 30. This kid is a good guy. He looked at me and said, no, I ain't doing it. I said, well, you want more? I'll give you more. No, he says 50-50 or nothing. I said, I did nothing. We did do a little work on the film, right? Both Jason and myself, but it wasn't, 50-50 worth of, stuff. Anyway, we entered into an agreement, 5 years. After 5 years, he's out of the picture and I got the film. So I've been selling it since 2010.
Yeah, he still sells it.
I still sell it.
Yeah.
People still buy that film.
Yeah. So it's been, pretty lucrative for me, and I didn't invest a nickel in the thing. So
That was a
So
documentary.
y'all just did a little bit on it, and
Yeah.
and it was a documentary.
yeah, it was a documentary. On
Well, what's the name
HIV
of it?
On HIV/AIDS. It's called
House of Numbers.
House of Numbers. Yeah.
I think you gave me that.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about world-renowned scientists. I mean, this kid went around the world twice to film this.
Wow.
He was, literally the biggest, without dropping names, like, what's his name there in France? Montagnier.
Montagnier.
Montagnier. Montagnier says on screen. Now, remember, without getting into a big to-do.
Hang on. He might, if this goes up on YouTube, it might get demonetized if you talk about this.
Oh,
I'll just
okay.
say
Well,
that.
then we'll
watch
just
the movie. Just
forget
watch
it.
the movie.
Yeah,
Just watch the movie.
Check it out. It's on Amazon.com, House of Numbers, and I'll get it shipped to you, anywhere in the continental U.S. I used to ship all over the world, but it got to be a pain with, different customs documents and whatever.
Yeah.
So I just ship in the U.S. now. But yeah, it's a great little film. I mean, heck,
You notice how he just walks into stuff? It's just
Yeah.
it's natural to him.
well, I think I got my head on swivel all the time. And you got to understand, I'm not always looking for something for me.
Right.
I'm looking for something for we.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that deal with my friend, I said, what can we do to do something with this film?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, I lost my train, but the point I guess I'm making is that, there was an opportunity. I seized it, did the best I could. Is it making me a millionaire? No, but it's getting his film out and
And it's helping Omada Films get a little bit of
yeah, it's
funding
something,
and
right? It's
yeah,
something.
it's something to do with it.
Right. Gives us exposure anyway. And,
Yeah.
and that's what we want.
I like the books.
Yeah, the books are cool. They really are.
I'm gonna get 'em.
If you play your cards right, you can get an autographed copy.
Well, yeah.
Technically, that will devalue the book, but I'll do it.
he'll do it despite that, right?
So you got the books out there, and y'all got together. You did that one movie. What was that one movie that you had to part in?
Oh, the Introverts Anonymous.
Yeah, that's the one I seen.
Yeah.
The little short that you showed me.
Yeah, actually, I'm in virtually every film that we've
Is it?
done.
No,
I work
really?
cheap. Yeah, I work really cheap. Not that I'm a good actor. I just work cheap. But but Introverts was a lot of fun. Yeah. Why don't you tell how that even
Yeah.
came
What
about?
was your thought process on that? I mean, I want to know about from the start to you close the can, done, ready to put it up.
For that one was a little bit different because that was a gap project, which is we had a
That's got nothing to do with the books. This is totally separate from
Yes.
everything.
right.
Okay.
We'd wanted to. I'd written a screenplay and put it together a team to go make that film, to go raise funds for that movie. But we wanted to kind of see if this team could collaborate and actually bring something to life. And I said, okay, well, let's do a short project and see if we can get through that first. And if we can as a team, because Thomas and I work together, but we also bring other people on.
Right.
Crew members, cast, things like that. And you want to see if you click with people before you get into the trenches, because then it's too late. So I wrote a script called Introverts Anonymous. It was kind of in the same tone as that feature project.
Right.
And just to kind of get a sense of things, like, okay, can these actors be used? The crew and their sensibilities, is this all working?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was an experimental project or a gap project to try to get to that larger thing. And Introverts Anonymous, I'm very introverted.
As am I.
Well, we're different kinds of introverts, perhaps, but
I'm sure there's different levels on all
Perhaps.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
because you come across happy-go-lucky a lot of times.
Yeah. But I'm actually introverted
Yeah.
as well. I can
And
be very
Jason's more,
outgoing.
he's pulled back a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Smart guys are like that.
well, no. But yeah, so I understood that world really well, and I wanted to write a character that I thought embodied that
right.
in a way. I ended up getting some criticism on the film from people who said, well, introverts don't really act the way this character acts. There's some introverts, like a Barack Obama said he's an introvert.
Yeah.
But he's a great speaker.
Yeah, he is.
an introvert is really somebody who gets energy from being alone. They get depleted more often than an extrovert when they're in a room full of people, or crowded places. So that's really what defines an introvert. And the character I wrote was a little more of somebody with social anxiety. So I got some flack for that from introverts saying, that's not really us. We're not like that, you know?
Well, that's like anything you put on the internet now. Everybody's got a freaking opinion about
everybody's
it.
a critic, right?
That's true. That's true. Never read the comments.
Yeah.
Is the idea.
No.
Which I don't obey that rule at all. But
No.
I did stop, though. You get to a certain point where it's hundreds of comments on something and you're like, okay, I'm out. I get a sense of things at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need any more input from strangers.
Yeah, my daughter calls them, oh, shoot, what was it she said? It was some kind of fight. She was always in a fight on something.
Yeah.
And I was curious, and I just asked her, and she's like, well, they make comments. I've got to try and, give my perspective on it. And no, this is not what we were thinking. This is not what I was doing. This is what my thought was on it. And then she's getting attacked for stuff. And I didn't realize how big of a problem it was. And then I'm talking to other people, and they're like, I'm getting off Facebook. I'm tired of getting attacked all the time just because I gave my opinion on something. And I'm like, shh. That old saying comes back.
Yeah, everybody's got
Yeah,
one.
everybody's got one.
Picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why the project happened. And I cast Thomas in this interesting role because he's really good at dealing with people who are down or need life advice, especially kind of young guys like I was, who didn't have a lot of older men in my life to say, this is the way to go. Stay away from this.
Right.
Just giving you some wisdom that was earned through many years.
Oh, yeah.
And Thomas, he always felt like that kind of guy in my life. And so I wrote a character who's very much like that. He's a counselor who's trying to get these 4 kids who have severe social anxiety to just come out of their shell.
Right.
And he gives them little experiments to go through. And it seems like it's an utter failure. And everything he did was for nothing.
Well, it's kind of disparaging when you see stuff like that, I mean, you try and try and try, and then nothing ever comes about of it.
That's right, yeah. And then in the final scene, things kind of come together, and you get to see, he had been planning something the whole time, and he was the mastermind behind getting this group of people to sort of become friends with each other.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's how that came about. And Thomas, I thought, was great in the role. He always my note, because you give actors notes when they're kind of getting off course, and I always tell him, I wrote this for you. Just stop acting, and you'll nail it.
Yeah, just be yourself on a lot of it.
Yeah. I said, I wrote this in your voice. I know it really well. We've done so many projects together. Just say the lines and stop acting.
It always throws me because I still want to desperately be an actor that goes out there and produces this performance that's just, astounding.
The Oscar moment?
Yeah, the Oscar moment. And Jason consistently, when I try to explain to him, I'm seeing this and I'm kind of feeling this and I'm thinking I ought to, and he just looks at me and says, dude, just be yourself.
Yeah.
I wrote it for you. Just be yourself. And I'm almost always disappointed for a moment until I go into character, do the scene, because it's very natural.
Yeah.
It feels very natural. I have a propensity toward compassion and reaching out to people.
Right.
Whether they're downtrodden or not is not even an issue. Just people, because I don't care who you are. You be on the top of the mountain today, but we all have our downs. And so wherever we're at that point, I just have a propensity to gravitate toward those people and want to assist in some way, shape, or form. I don't profess to be an expert at anything other than I'm an expert at compassion, if you will.
Right.
I strive to be. So.
Yeah, it's that's something I really admired about you, because I've known you for a while, and me, you, and another friend of ours, Eric, we'll get on the phone, during the day while we're driving and stuff, and it's like I could be pissed off about something or just not having a good day on any daggum thing and trying to get my thoughts straight. And you're right there. You just pop it right off. And no, look, David, dude, this is what you got to do. You know, and then of course Eric would chime in every now and then about, well, this is what you really need to do, you know, and between you two helping me out a lot, that's kind of what has driven me to do what I want to do, and actually finding an avenue for, you know, the whole podcast thing and everything else. So, I mean, you've helped me out tremendously.
Yeah, Thomas is one of the most selfless people. He was giving me a pep talk on the way over here today about something that's going on in my private life. He just never stops, and he's always others focused. And, you know, we talked about kind of making these films for 16 years, but a big chunk of that time was actually doing projects for other people.
Right.
And, you know, I think that when you, especially Thomas, he's always looking at a project as how can I give value to you rather than what can I get from you.
Yeah.
And I think as a company, that's a motto that we like.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like, can we give value to you? How can we help you?
Yeah, because, I mean, you've, over that course of 16 years, I'm sure you've got pretty much everything you need to actually load up a truck and go do what you need to do. And cameras are, dude, I had a problem with the cameras and everything, and I finally got these cameras, and I'm loving these cameras. They actually work pretty good. And the first cameras I got, I think I paid $133 for each one of them, and these are like $9.99. So I mean, the movie These Streets We Haunt, when I was watching it, I was just like, dude, the visual on this, oh my God. And then it hit me, this has got to be an expensive ass camera.
It actually was.
It was an expensive camera. That's not generally what you're looking at, though, when you see like a cinematic image.
Right. Well, I mean, the quality was just awesome on it.
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
motion picture quality.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
And not to get off the technicals, because that's not me, that's Jason. But I'd like to say that, you know, we had an incredible group of people working on that feature with us, okay? Quite frankly, you know, I was not very well or very much involved because I was working. I had things to do. You know, I wrote a check and did that. But also because Jason is kind of been, like, for me anyway, like my adoptive son, okay, because I don't really have, you know, boys, I got girls. And that's a whole nother thing. But the point was I wanted him to build his confidence, and I wanted him to understand and realize his strengths and weaknesses. And the weaknesses are not a problem. They're there. They're real. Everybody's got them. But if you learn and understand those, then you can find little workarounds.
Oh, yeah.
And but that was my main thrust, is to have him get out there and just do it. He didn't need me. In other words, I gave him that little push on the bicycle.
Yeah.
And from there, he goes. Now, obviously, I had more faith and trust in him maybe than he did in himself at the time. But that's the way it ought to be, right?
Right.
That's how you motivate. But the people that were involved in this project that gave of their time, their energy, their ideas, even from a financial standpoint, they sacrificed. They really did. And, you know, the reality of it is why did they even do that? For some of them were essentially strangers to us, but I mean, we had done some stuff with them, but we really didn't know one another. But I think again, to get back to what Jason was saying, is our thing is, how can we help you? You know, we want your experience on our project to be as though it's your project as well. We want you to love it as much as we love it. We want you to be as passionate as you can be about it.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to do whatever we can do to make that a reality and make it so that it's a natural flow. And so these people brought so much to the table. And like I said, it was, without them, we wouldn't have what we have today.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people fall behind on, is more and more people I'm learning are more looking at that monetary than anything else. And
they're in the wrong business then.
Well, yeah. And I'm basically looking at kind of like from your perspective. I want this to be fun.
Yeah.
I want guests that come on the show to have some fun. Hopefully it'll help them out. Hopefully it'll help me out.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I want something, when I upload it, I want something to be proud of.
Sure.
And you don't find a lot of that anymore.
No.
I mean, it's people are not really prideful in what they do, you know, and talk about it exclusively. And this is what we did. And I mean, with anything, when you start to build something and you get it to that certain point, you should be able to sit back and go, man, what a ride. I loved it.
Yeah.
Instead, they're looking at their checkbook going,
Not what I had in mind.
not what I wanted, you know, and then they're just like, I won't do that no more.
Right.
I can't tell you how much used gear is out anywhere at different places. I can imagine there's probably plenty of used gear for movies and people getting into the indie stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a guy that we worked with years ago that was kind of a quasi partner with us, and he was always, we're going to be rich. We're going to be rich. I love the guy. He's a good guy. He's no longer with us, but
He's not dead. He's just not.
that was his thrust.
He didn't get rich, so he just left.
You know, pretty much, right? Let me.
That's why they
excuse
do.
myself. Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, it's you're going to weed people
Well,
out.
not everybody is in it for the sake of the art, and
Right.
that's fine. That's why I'm doing it, because I think there's value in stories and in art and beautiful things. I think there's nothing more beautiful than taking something that didn't exist and then kind of giving birth to it and sharing it with somebody else. Look at this thing that's so beautiful,
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
some
what I
people look
noticed
at-
when I was looking at the books online.
Yeah.
The artwork on each one, I mean, it wasn't like vastly different, but you could see where they were.
Yeah, there was a theme. But
Yeah,
it
a
was
whole
still
theme to
unique.
it, you know, and it drew me in more. I mean, it had beautiful artwork on the cover and everything, and that's what made me want to get them. So I'm hoping that I'm not going to be disappointed.
No, I don't think you will be.
No refunds.
We
no.
actually were talking about what Jason's talking about. We were talking about that on the way up here.
Yeah.
As far as what's the motivation for doing what we do. And I've got a slightly different bent on it. I'm not as concerned, or I don't want to say concerned, but not as steeped in the creative process
Right.
as I am the business side.
Well, yeah, that's where Jason comes in.
Yeah. And it's, we're both creative, but it's not the money. It's the fact that I love doing business.
Yeah.
Well, what I was explaining to Thomas is the way I am attracted to creating art. He's attracted to business for the same way, because it's the craft of doing the thing that he likes, and it's not that much different. It's just a different area of focus.
Yeah.
He finds a lot of joy in coming up with business ideas, ways to monetize things. The same way I get excited about a good story, or a
Right.
twist ending or something.
Yeah, that's part of why I was doing this, because I love having conversations with people. I mean, me and Thomas is old truck drivers, man.
We talk, baby.
We'd be on the CB radio all the daggone time, going down the road,
Right.
And what you're doing right now is storytelling.
Yeah.
We're just getting together and talking like we would if there weren't microphones here.
Yeah, you could be in a truck, he could be in a truck, and we'd be going down the road at 75 mile an hour, having a conversation, just keeping each other awake, going down the road, and
Doing some
You
commentary
learn.
driving, telling people what you're seeing at the time.
Yeah.
You see this guy, boy, this car's wrecked over here in the snowbank, whatever.
oh yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned, or we talked about people and how the involvement of people. I wanted to kind of mention Phil Valentine
yeah,
because he was a part of this project as well. And
yeah. He was. That was his last movie, wasn't it?
it was the last movie. And you talked about pride, and that's what kind of triggered me to think about Phil. And it's a whole story about how he even got involved in the project. But I guess the bottom line was after he had seen the film, he was actually unable to go to when we screened the film in Murfreesboro, the Premiere 6 Cinema. He couldn't come. He had to work and so forth. But At any rate, he had seen the film, I don't know, I guess on his computer or whatever.
He watched it at home.
At home?
And I think that he told his wife before, or no, his wife asked him before it came on, am I going to be ashamed of what I'm going to see? And he said, I don't know.
I don't know yet. Yeah, we'll have to see here. Yeah. But he texted me and he just said, I just wanted to say that I am so proud to have been a part of this project. Thank you very much. And Phil was a joy. He really was. He was so easy to work with. I mean, I didn't work with him as a director, but obviously as a director.
For people who don't know, Phil was a nationally syndicated radio host and author of some spy novels. A lot of people knew who he was, and so when he first came onto the project, I thought he's gonna be a certain way,
Right.
And when he first came into the set, well, first of all, Thomas offered to send a ride out to get him. He's like, I'll drive in, it's fine.
Yeah.
But when he walked onto the set, he's like, where's the makeup person? And I said, we don't have one of those today. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we just can't afford one. And he said, it's fine, I brought my own powder, it's good. He's like, I need a mirror, that's it. And I was like, I like him.
Oh, yeah.
Nice guy. He took direction really well, which is not always the case with people who have some notoriety.
Right.
And pulls up in a Bentley, no less.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, he had that Bentley. But, yeah, true. And he wasn't a diva in any way, shape, or form. And tried to even do a meal plan for him. And he only had a couple of scenes, but the point was, he's like, no, whatever you guys are eating that day, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
And he was on a dietary program, but he was just cool. He was not a problem. We sat and had pizza together, shooting a breeze about truck driving and miscellaneous stuff. It was an enjoyable time. And obviously, we're all very sad when we learned of his passing. In fact, I still today get people. I got a text yesterday. In fact, I think I read it to you from a friend of mine that I work with that said, I just watched These Streets We Haunt.
Oh, yeah,
he said, man, he said, I really love the film. It's really great. He said, you actually look good in the thing that he's saying. I said, oh, okay, great. And we didn't have makeup that day, but okay, I look good. But then he said, it was so good to see Uncle Phil.
Yeah.
He said, and then his last thing was, I really miss that man.
Man, he had a great career.
He did. He only stopped his syndication because his publisher really felt very strongly about his writing and wanted to kind of have him go more in that direction. Mm-hmm. Well, naturally, syndication was overwhelming in terms of the time commitment. For preparation and so forth. So he opted to walk away from that and do really what his love is the novels. And, so I guess you could say that Phil, no matter what transpired, he lived his life and he lived large and he was a wonderful, wonderful person to deal with. He wasn't a pain.
Yeah, what that taught me is it's not always unpleasant dealing with people who are famous or semi-famous, because I got it in my head a long time ago that I didn't want to work with celebrities.
Right.
Because a lot of them are a handful. You kind of don't want to work with them. But
I mean, from the movie aspect of it, I didn't want to interject, but I was just curious. When you've got a movie in mind, you can actually say, hey, I want to give me these 3 actors or these 3 actresses, and I want to try them. I mean, you have an idea already. So, like, if there's somebody you just really knew was a diva or whatever, and you just really didn't want to work with them, you didn't have to get them, right?
Well, you don't always know.
You don't always know. That's the tricky thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it kind of depends project to project. I mean, they might come onto your project having done a good job on the last one, got along with everybody, and now they're having substance abuse issues and they're just a train wreck. It's very common actually.
Yeah.
And so you don't always know what you're going to get with name actors.
Right.
So I still prefer to work with locals if I can help it. I just find them more open to ideas. But again, I haven't worked with a lot of famous people, so I might be wrong about that.
Well,
but I know people who have, and I don't think I'm that wrong about it.
Well, that's when I was doing the licensed sound all over Nashville and everything, that was something that I didn't really care. I mean, I kind of knew already who the problem people were, But when it came to, like, if I was just doing the lighting, I'd walk up to them while they were setting up on stage, and I'd be like, hey, what songs are you doing? What do you like in the lighting? They would give me a little bit of an idea, and I'd say, okay, well, I'm doing your lights tonight, and have a good show, and I'd walk away. I just treat them like normal people, and they put their pants on just like I do.
Yeah, I remember Thomas and I were at an event last year, and Victoria Jackson from SNL.
Oh yeah,
pretty well known.
She's a hoot, man.
Yeah, she just came up and she said, "Hey, I'm Victoria," and it's like, "Yeah, we know, I watched you growing up."
Who doesn't
Who
know?
don't know? Yeah.
She was just chit chatting with everybody like it was nothing, and I'm like, okay, there are good ones.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, I asked as we were walking out of the theater. I stopped and was just chit chatting with her briefly. I said, by the way, I'm a filmmaker. I said, if I do a production and I've got a role in there for you, would you be possibly willing to do it? She said, sure, reach out to me. I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, a lot of people just like to do their craft,
Yeah.
well, Phil, getting back to Phil, I spoke with him. It's actually a couple of days before he went in the hospital, and I knew he wasn't, he had COVID, but I thought he was getting better. And so I texted him and, just wished him well. I knew he was going to do the show that day. And I said to him, by the way, I said, we are more than likely, Lord willing, going to have some future projects coming up. Would you be interested in, in me keeping you in the loop for potential future projects?
Right.
Keeping in mind, I said, I would like to give you something meatier than what you had in our last feature. And he just typed back, oh man, that would be great. He said, yes, please keep me in the loop because I would love to do more in that area. I said, okay, great.
Yeah.
And the next day he had gone in the hospital.
Yeah. I hate him passing.
I know it.
I mean, he was a good guy.
Yeah.
A moment of silence for Mr. Phil Valentine, because, I mean, he was a great one.
He was.
You don't make certain people like that anymore.
No. One of a kind.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
I don't know if we diverge too much from the
Dude.
technical. I know that you wanted to talk about it, and I think we got into storytelling mode. And but if you did have some stuff to ask, because when I listen to podcasts, and there's a few I like when they get into the nuts and bolts, especially if somebody's accomplished something I'm trying to do.
Right.
I want to hear how they did it, and I want to know specifics. Not everybody.
Yeah, because I think we were like midway through on the start to finish on the Introverts Anonymous.
Oh, okay.
Was what we was talking about.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then we kind of do it. And this is what I like about what I do, because it's a conversation, man.
Mm-hmm.
We can go back, we can go forward, we can do anything we want to.
I just don't want to ignore anything you're interested in.
Oh, no, you're good. You were on I'm trying to remember, used to, we could say playback and somebody'd play back something to you, but.
Yeah, we have a massive crew, by the way. You can't see it, but there's like 14 people back there, a switchboard.
Right.
Yeah. Sure. Bring me a coffee. No. But yeah, on the Introverts, you got him playing the role. And there was, if I remember correctly, one of the last scenes was you was actually in the car pulled up, and I think it was your two kids in the house. They were actually
they were in a bar. It was
Right.
a bar scene, and it was a big picture window, and they were sitting at bench seating at a table in the bar, and there were four of them, and they were actually interacting, which was a big, moment. And we cut to the folks up there doing their thing, having their bottles of beer and kind of interacting in that regard. And then cut back to me. I was in my car and looking up at my kids because I perceived them as, my kids, right?
right.
And, it was funny because without going into a lot, I didn't even really understand what an introvert necessarily was. I kind of know it's a thing, but I really, at the time that I did, I'm going, I don't know, I guess.
Well, you pulled off. Good job.
Well, I said to myself after the fact, especially after the comments that people made, I thought, geez, I could have done that better.
Yeah.
But ironically, it worked fine, surprisingly. But it had been raining that day, and it just the way the lighting was, and it looked like I was welling up with tears, which I wasn't. And as I'm looking at the kids, kind of give a little smile, and then I drive off. It was a moment that people literally. I had folks say to me that they cried.
Yeah, that was one of the big main things that came out in that movie.
Yeah,
which
that was just some magic that had nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's just the way filmmaking works, because what Thomas was focused on in that scene wasn't so much the moment, because he wasn't seeing anything. There was nobody in the room he was looking at, because we shot that separate.
Right.
They weren't even in there. Yeah. We were doing his coverage first, and so he was just kind of looking off into space. I gave him an eye line, and I said, okay, drive away. And we were trying to get the car to move away at the right speed to where we could fade out, at the same time racking focus to the background. So the whole thing was a technical challenge, and he was, not in the story, so to speak, as an actor, because he was driving the car. We had a complicated kind of focus shift, and so that's what was on his mind the whole time. But when people watch it, because of the way it's cut together, they think, "Oh, I was so moved by that." But they don't realize what goes on behind the scenes is a little bit.
Well, that was some of the technical stuff that I was wanting to ask you about. I mean, because a lot of times when you see something, it's already had editing. This shot was set up at a certain location at a certain time, and then you've got, of course, lighting, weather, yada yada yada. Everything that you encompass putting this stuff together. I mean, for a 30-minute film, you're looking at how much time of actual footage that you've shot, setting up shots?
Wow. It depends on the project. For Introverts Anonymous, we're going back a ways. I think we shot that in 2016 or 2016, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember how much we shot. We shot over the course of, I think it was 3 days. Right. If I'm not mistaken. Was it 3 days?
It was 3 days.
Yeah. They were full days, so we're doing a day in film terms is 12 hours.
Okay.
So they were pretty full 3 12-hour days, and we filled up our cards. We were shooting on the red. We shot an 8K resolution, which is way overkill for a little indie drama, but it allowed us to reframe in post.
Okay.
Which it saves time, because one of the final shots in that film is Dorothy, the main character. She's having this heart-to-heart with this guy she had a crush on. And we only had time to shoot a wide shot for that. And you don't capture a moment like that in a wide shot. You need a close-up.
Right.
So Dustin Heyer, my DP on the film, he's like, well, we can shoot it in a wide because we're in 8K, and then I can do a fake pull-out as if we had a dolly, set up. And we started from a close-up and then moved, to a wider shot.
Yeah, just roll the camera backwards.
Yeah, but what we actually did, because we didn't have time to do that, we just shot in as a wide. He punched into the face, so we had a close-up in post, and then through editing, he just kind of moved the camera out as if the camera was on tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So shooting in a really high resolution, this is way too much detail, but it allowed us.
A lot of people want to know this stuff. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of people don't know. I mean, you sit down and watch a movie, and dude, the work that goes into it, nobody has a clue. But you go into a theater and you're watching an hour 49 or an hour 52 movie.
It's one reason I'm very kind to indie filmmakers, even if I watch their project and I don't like it. It's such a miracle that anything is finished. If you can finish a movie and it's even remotely watchable, I think that's a big win. So I don't. Well,
in that vein, for example, House of Numbers film that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
There were over 300 hours of footage.
Wow.
On that film. Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's totally a lot. And now, so the actual feature itself was about 2 hours or so?
Yeah.
And then there's a complimentary double DVD set that goes with it, which is not what you would call outtakes, but just additional footage out of the 300 hours of footage.
Right.
On very deliberate and specific talks between scientists and the filmmaker who was interviewing them for the documentary. So it's quite intense. But my point is that there you go, over 300 hours of footage.
Brent, the director of that, he showed me the first cut of it he had. He was really proud of it, and God bless him. But it was almost 3 hours long. And I said, you gotta cut this in half. And he said, but it's all important.
Yeah.
I can't, what do I cut? You know, and he was really frustrated by that.
Trim all that down. That's tough.
And so his answer to that was he released an 1.5-hour version, and then he did a double disc at the time, back when people watched DVDs, which they still do.
They still do.
You got a little bit of an edge, though, because most of the movies that y'all been doing, you've actually wrote. So you've already got this pre-vision of what you want.
We do primarily everything in-house. I mean, as far as screenwriting, as far as, acting and so forth, we hire out people for crew. But, yeah, I'm always getting inundated by people wanting to give me ideas on films. I don't need ideas. I need money. Okay? We got plenty of ideas. I don't need ideas, but people don't realize that. I've got this idea for a film. Great. I've got 15 of them, and I got a list, and we're trying to prioritize, and all we need is money,
Well, we just need to get, a shirt made for you that says, great idea.
Yeah.
How much money you got?
Yeah. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you.
Oh no, that was perfect. But with the money thing, it's true though. But resources are the same as money in a way. And I'm constantly reminding Thomas of this too, because what do you raise money for on a film? Resources. Like, oh, that location's $2,000, for a couple days. I really want that location, but I don't have enough money, But if
I was curious about that, how that goes. I mean, as far as locations, because you see people, they're outside of somebody's house. Okay. Well, you got to rent that house for a day.
Sometimes
you may be able to cheat it if it's the outside. But like my house, we shot footage in my house for the film
and mine.
And yours, yeah, exactly. And
but the two main locations
it was free
for these streets we haunt were Airbnbs.
Yeah.
And one of those, the main location, I think we were there for 8 to 10 days. So the half the shoot basically was in this one house. And
that's the main house of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we paid
where our lead character was. Yeah.
I think it was like $1,800 for the 10 days. And then I had to pay some additional stuff because the crew damaged one of the walls.
I'm sure that's a whole story in itself.
Yeah, so I had to pay a little bit extra, but let's call it $2,000.
Yeah.
For 10 days of shooting, and that's about par for the course. That might be a little bit of a deal actually we got on that one. But what I meant by resources though is that if you, like Thomas, like my house, if you have a place that you don't have to pay for, it's as good as having the money.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it just saved us X.
If you're rich in resources, you need less money. That's kind of the idea.
No, I can understand that. Yeah. So on when you decide to make the project, how do you go about that vision of actually putting it on film with your audio, everything you've got? Because to me, that would be one of the biggest technical stuff to piece all that together. And you've got to, as far as the director, you've got to have all that in your head. You got to know, okay, I want this. You over here, you over there. We're going to do this shot. And the lighting is going to be perfect in an hour and 15 minutes. So everybody get ready. What's that process that you go through?
Hey, before you answer, though, I want to say one of the single biggest things for a director, from my perspective, most directors know exactly what they want. That's not the issue. The issue is, can I get the rest of this crew to cooperate? That's the issue. Am I right?
That's quite true. Yeah, it's not just having a vision; you have to communicate the vision, and that was one of my weak points along the way. Was I had the vision, but it was in my head. So how do you translate that to somebody who doesn't see the picture in your head?
Right.
And to complicate matters, on set most films do what's called block shooting.
Okay.
And block shooting means you don't shoot the scenes sequentially as they would appear in the screenplay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on day one, you might shoot a scene that takes place halfway into the story, and it's a really emotional scene, and these actors showed up that day and they just met each other. So
that might not work.
But you have to make it work because
that's why we hire them, because they can do that.
Yeah, block shooting exists because, and I don't like it, but it's one of those necessary evils because let's say you have a location for 10 days that you paid for, you got to shoot all the scenes that take place in that location before you move to the next one. Because if you don't, you wasted the space and you're going to pay more money for that location.
Right. Especially if you got multiple shots.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you had money, you wouldn't waste it by, fragmenting it. You got to get it all right then and there. It just makes sense.
Well, yeah, because that, as long as that clock is moving, you're wasting money.
Yeah, and that particular location might be sprinkled throughout the entirety of the film.
Yeah.
But it has to happen.
So when we're doing block shooting, which is most of the time, the first thing I do on set while the crew's setting up the lights is I'll communicate with the DP. And I've worked with this guy, Dustin Heyer, on the last 3 films. So we have a bit of a shorthand with each other. And he'll tell me kind of what he's thinking. I'll tell him, okay, that works. Go ahead. And at that point, I move on to talking to the actors. And the main thing talking to the actors when you do this kind of shooting is letting them know, orienting them to where we are in the movie.
Right.
It would seem like that. Why would you talk about that? But it's because you're shooting out of order, and it's not always clear kind of what happened before and after the scene you're shooting.
Well, see, I didn't know that. I thought maybe y'all did. You went in and you shot particular scenes, and you kind of stayed within the script of the whole thing.
Within a given scene, that's true, although not always. Sometimes you break a scene in 2, like we did in Introverts, where there's a scene where he's in the same scene. There's a shot where he's looking at 4 people, but that was shot separately than his coverage.
Okay.
So he's not actually looking at anything when he's supposed to be looking at them.
Right.
That's where the acting comes in.
That's where the acting comes in. But it's a big hurdle, and I think directors who aren't super experienced, they don't know that the actor comes to set a little bit disoriented because, especially in a feature, if you have a 20-day schedule, let's say, and you're on day 1 and you're shooting page 74, you have to orient that actor and say, okay, here's how we're coming into the scene.
Here's your direction.
Here's the direction. Here's what comes after that scene. By that point, you're not really directing so much in terms of performance or telling an actor, okay, here's what your character is thinking. They come to set knowing that at this point.
Okay.
It's more of a technical walkthrough of, okay, you're going to walk from here to here. This is where the light's set up. So you're going to land on this mark and do your line. It's very technical when you're on set. It's in pre-production where you're having those conversations about motivation, all the character stuff. That needs to happen before you're on set, because when you're on set, the clock is ticking. And you can't get into philosophical discussions about what your character, their background and stuff like that. You had better do that in pre-production.
So in the pre-production stuff, do y'all do like everybody sitting around a big table and y'all just go through the whole movie right there at the table?
Well, we've done that, but we don't, as a rule, generally do that.
And you don't always need it on short films. But I do like rehearsal, and we did the lead actress, Lauren Perez on Streets, lived in Miami at the time we were doing pre-production. And Jesse, who was the kind of the villain in the movie, he lived in Atlanta, and other people were local. So we weren't able to get in the same room together before we shot. In fact, the day I met Jesse was the first day on set. Mm-hmm. So
he came prepared, fortunately.
He had to. Well, but we did do a couple of Skype rehearsals where we were all, and it's not the same because you're not in the same room and you're not moving around a physical space. You're just kind of sitting in front of a webcam, which isn't the same energy you would get
right.
The table read maybe. But
well, that's what I hear in Hollywood and stuff. Like The Big Bang Theory and a bunch of those little shows. They do like a table read and then they go on set. And
that's pretty typical on those types.
Well, that's why I was curious, because I didn't know if that's something y'all did in like a production of a movie also.
Different filmmakers approach that differently. I am a big fan of rehearsal, and
I am not.
And that's why he never knows his lines. See,
I struggle. I struggle with.
So you're more improv guy, huh?
No, he has ADHD, so it's a little bit tricky for him to get the dialogue down. And
my thing is, and we've talked about this, when you're rehearsing. Now, this is a weird outlook, but this is my perspective. When you're rehearsing, you're faking, okay? You're acting. When the camera is turned on and you are therefore in the role,
Right.
that's reality.
All right, Thomas, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong.
Yes. Please, by all means.
This is what I do with my
That's-
actors.
That's what it feels like to me, though.
Yeah, I know.
That's
I know.
reality.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm faking it.
To be honest,
fake.
the way I work with Thomas is different than other actors, and not everybody has the same process. They're especially actors who come from a theater background. They are so familiar with rehearsal, not just rehearsal, but the actual play itself is done several times. So it's very unnatural for them to just to show up on set. And say,
And perform.
yeah, it's weird. Actors who started on camera tend to like a more spontaneous approach. I kind of side with the theater, the theater actors on this because
Well, preparation. It's a great thing.
Well, yeah.
well,
If you can hack it.
yeah, one thing is it helps you understand things that you won't have to ask on set. Because like I said, on set, every minute counts.
Oh, yeah.
You're paying people per day, and you've scheduled a certain amount of days. So that is not the time to play with motivations and ask really deep questions. And, I prefer when those things come out before we get on set and we tackle all of that. And then the actor, when they're on set, they know their lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not thinking about your lines while you're trying to act at the same time.
Right.
So I prefer they show up, they know their lines, and at that point you can sink into character a bit. As long as you're oriented and you kind of know where you are in the story. And so a big part of my job is trying to orient them in that, here's where we are in the timeline of the story.
Okay. Page 79.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a lot of what a director's doing on set is.
It helps with perspective because that's something that I struggled with for a long time with Jason. How many times did I look at you and say, can you explain to me?
Yeah.
I don't understand how this relates to the next scene. And it's like, we're not shooting that scene. We're shooting out of sequence. I struggled with that for a long, long time.
Well, say that's what I'm learning here because, I have no clue.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I finally got to the point where I just decided, you know what? I don't have to ask him these questions. He's telling me what he's telling me for a reason. And I came to the place where, you realize that I trusted you then. Before that, I'm going, Jason, I think you might be mistaken because it doesn't this, and,
Thomas would always ask me stuff on set because he didn't. I think at the time you didn't understand the editing process.
I had no clue.
Yeah, when I step
That
on
was part
set,
of my education process.
Yeah, and most actors I think who haven't edited before, they struggle with this too. And they'll wonder why you're doing things a certain way because it doesn't always seem intuitive. Like, why is the director asking this, and why is the camera there?
That's why I was asking about the whole timeline and how y'all set this up, and because really it's amazing how a lot of the shoots get done from my understanding of what I've heard, and then seeing that finished product, and you're just like, dude, this is fantastic, but you see somebody that's, been on vacation down in Panama City Beach with a camera and they're trying to put it together on a movie or something like that. And you're just like, duh, not bad, but it wasn't this.
This is the reason a director has to have a vision to make anything, because the most unimpressive thing in the world is to walk on set and watch a scene happen. Unless it's a really intense scene with A-list actors or something, it's going to look like a really technical, boring, slow process where a person repeats the same thing 4 times. They have to hit a certain mark, so people are putting tape on the ground. And the whole thing looks unimpressive.
Right.
But when you see the final product, it's so different. But the director has to see that final product while he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the ability you have to make a film. You have to see what it's going to be like once it's edited, once the score is laid in.
But you've got that vision in your head the whole time, piecing it all together.
Yeah. What I found is, as an actor, you're not seeing, it's kind of like I have pieces of a puzzle, right? He's got
Yeah.
the whole puzzle. He knows what the picture looks like. I've got a small piece. Somebody else has another piece. And what your I guess your natural tendency is, I want to know the whole thing, but it's just the nature of it. You can't. What you have to learn to do is your part.
Oh yeah.
And trust your director because he sees the big picture. And that's what I struggled with initially until, obviously over time we've dealt with it and taken care of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, back when I was doing sound and everything, on some recordings, if it was a duo, you would have, okay, this artist can only be in at this certain time.
Yes.
This artist can only be in at this certain time.
Can't be together.
But you've got to take two individuals and you got to complete this song, and they're singing to each other. There's all kinds of stuff on duos. It's quite extraordinary how you can just piece it all together and make it work.
Yeah. Again, it's a level of professionalism that makes the art, so great. If it is actually great, it's that level of professionalism that really does that. That's why people, if it was so easy, everybody would be doing it, right? Yeah.
I think a lot of people have started and thought they'd have a good idea to do it and backed out of it.
I've started numerous things in my life. I've failed at more things than you can imagine. But for whatever reason, I continue to find new things to try to do.
Well, it's like some new drivers that I've talked to, and they're just like, you back up aimlessly. I don't see how you hit the dock in one shot. And I'm just like, dude, I backed up more miles than you have even thought about going forward. So,
yeah. Believe it or not, this is my 52nd year.
Damn.
As a driver. Yeah.
I ain't doing it.
No, I hope you don't.
I'm not.
I'm retiring soon anyway, so.
You need to.
I need to.
You need to work full time on just this stuff.
Well, I agree.
It's about to happen, and I've never actually had Thomas full time as a producer or an actor. He's always, moonlighting, and me too. I've always I'll continue to work. I'm a ways off from retirement, but
he's got more flexibility in his schedule.
that's true.
Me, I primarily up until the last couple of years, I've been working 60 hours a week consistently. That's a norm. It doesn't leave a lot of room for a whole lot of other things.
Yeah. Well,
And
when
it's amazing
COVID came out, man, everybody started working from home. It's opened up a whole big new avenue because a lot of people, they're just not going back. Companies are finding out, hey, we ain't got to pay
I know.
this big old building,
David, I've been trying to figure out how I could drive a truck from the house.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
I hope so. Well, actually, it'll come by the time I retire, so who cares?
They'll have a VR headset you can use.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the drones.
Like you worked the entire pandemic. I worked 6 days a week
Every
during the
second of it.
pandemic, right? People were sitting at home talking about doing this, that, and the other. I'm like, I'm not at home. I can't be at home.
Yeah. No, I had COVID when it first came out, when it first hit.
I had it before it came out.
I was quarantined.
I got the early bird special.
Yeah.
He was in the Wuhan lab.
I was in the lab, exactly. No, 2019, the Christmas week, I got it.
Don't demonetize the guy, okay?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
But yeah, I did the quarantine in the truck.
Right.
I was only down for 4 days.
Okay.
Wasn't that bad.
Yeah, that's right, because you were running the road at that time.
Yeah, I was
you were
still on
sleeping in the
yeah.
truck at a truck stop for 4 days, right?
Yeah, because I've been at this job that I'm at now where I just shift trailers on the yard.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, home every night and off weekends.
Right.
And that's how I've gotten to accomplish what I've accomplished.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of new avenues and a lot of people are just, okay, I got to find something to do.
Yeah.
And it makes it a whole lot easier when you can log in at work and do what you got to do for a couple of hours. And
Jason
then,
does. Yeah.
And here's a side project here. Let me make a couple of notes here, and it works a whole lot better.
Yeah.
I'm hoping more companies stay with that.
Right. I know some people that would go to work and actually write screenplays while they were working.
Well,
I don't know who that could be.
I have no idea.
I have to take up for myself here. We were I worked for a company that owned a bunch of hospitals, and we were doing rack audits at the time. This is where the government decides the hospital overcharged for certain services.
Yeah.
So they would send these audits to the hospitals, and we had a team of clinicians who would go through those and make appeals. write official appeals and all the way up to ALJ. And the RAC system, the legal system got so bogged down with this process that we had to we went to court and we settled with them, our company, and the government.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, there was like a year and a half where our company basically, I'm going to get in trouble saying it. I'm so sorry. Can you edit this out? Because I still work for this company. Actually, I don't want to tell this story because
the Big Boy Toy Fund is right there. We'll talk.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. There was
other news.
Yeah.
I'll just say that I haven't said the name of the company.
No,
so, okay,
that's good.
Okay. Yeah. We had about a year and a half where there was no work coming in because of the settlement, and so we just came into work every day, and there was nothing to do. And I wrote like 5 screenplays or something during that time.
Sweet.
He's considerably more productive than myself because during COVID, there were many times when, you'd call in and say, "Do you have anything for me?" "No." "Well, I'm out here in, ABC land. What do you want me to do?" You just sit because we need you out there just in case something comes in. I could be sitting for 3-4 hours some days.
Oh, yeah.
But I wasn't productive. I just sat there and played on my phone or called somebody or whatever. But
most of the time he was on the phone with me and Eric.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. What are you doing? "Oh, I'm sitting." "Okay, how about you?" "Yeah, I'm sitting." That's what we did during the pandemic. But traffic was beautiful, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
We loved it. Stay home, people.
You could go through Nashville.
Yeah.
Noon.
Record time.
You could go through there 35 minutes from start to finish, be done, hardly any traffic on the road at all. Now
rush hour wasn't even rush hour. It was like rush 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was it.
I just developed a new conspiracy theory listening to you guys, and that is truck drivers started the whole thing.
Yeah. So we could clear the roads. Yeah. Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah. I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
All right, where we at? We keep digressing and moving over to other areas. And
what are you interested in? Let's talk about that.
My big thing when I was doing this was getting the setup and the cameras. And that's what got me wondering what kind of cameras and stuff y'all use, because I've never gotten into that video aspect, and now I'm seeing where I'm getting into it. And I mean, this is probably to you a novice setup.
No, I think what you've got is kind of nice here. You got a 3-camera setup. You've got a switchboard. I mean, this is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, because I researched this Black Magic design, and actually, for this little board right here, it's not that expensive, but it gives great quality. And if you go on their website, dude, they got boards that are, they're just massive joystick controllers and all that stuff. And that's what got me wondering, what type of equipment do y'all use? I mean, is for an indie company, are y'all like more scaled down, or are y'all using the big old boards? And I know the software, the software that came with this, me and you was talking about before the show.
Yeah.
Basically the same software y'all use for video editing.
We cut, I'm cutting everything in DaVinci Resolve right now. And Lori, my editor on Streets, she used DaVinci Resolve to cut that film. I did the color grading in DaVinci as well.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that software is fantastic. I speak highly of that.
Oh, I'd love to have the cameras. Their cameras are gorgeous.
Yeah, they make really good cameras too.
Because these don't have their cameras have the little lights on top, tells you what camera you're on.
Oh, they're studio cameras, yeah.
Yeah, but they're like 4K and 6K. But this little board I'm running only runs 1080. And I think it's like 1080 and 60p. Something like that. So no matter what I put into it.
Which is good enough. I will say this. We shot Streets in 8K resolution. Most of the scenes we shot in 8K. But we mastered the film in 2K. So that's a lot less Ks. And the reason is because the companies our distributor works with wanted a 2K or 1080p master file.
Right.
4K for them was optional, but some of them wouldn't even take it.
Well, that's what I was noticing because, like, when you're uploading on YouTube and all that other stuff, a lot of the times the easiest file to get uploaded is just a regular 1080p.
Mm-hmm. That's still 2K is still kind of the standard for viewing, whereas 4K has become the acquisition format. For a long time, it was like the industry standard camera, the Arri Alexa, was a 2K camera. It couldn't shoot 4K. And that's why a lot of the Netflix movies were using the red camera, because it could shoot higher resolutions, and they had a 4K minimum requirement for things they produce in-house.
Now, is that the name of the camera, the red camera?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the name of that's the name of the company that makes the camera, and they have different versions of it.
Okay.
We used one called the helium camera. It's a few years old now. They have a Komodo, which is a smaller little box camera.
Okay.
It's popular now. So we shot 3 movies on that camera because Dustin, my DP, owned one. So it wasn't an aesthetic choice. It was just he had it.
Right.
And I saw some utility in using 8K and then reframing in post so that we could shoot a medium shot instead of a medium and a close-up. We could just shoot the medium and then punch into a close-up if we needed one.
Right.
So I saw the utility of it. It wasn't about releasing the film in 8K or even 4K. I just saw some value in oversampling the image in order to...
time saver as well.
It was a time saver, yeah.
Yeah, it really was.
Well, that's what I was real concerned with, because a lot of the things that I was researching, a lot of people were using just the regular still cameras, and they were turning it to video.
Yeah, DSLRs.
Yeah, but then I noticed, like, okay, you're sitting here, you got a camera on you, but with those type cameras, if I moved back or I moved forward, they would not follow the focus. And then you had to go through this whole process with each camera, whether it was the same brand or not, and you had to go in there and physically set every freaking camera. And what turned me on so much about these are actually video cameras, Canons, and this board, it doesn't matter what those cameras are set at. It comes into here and it processes everything down to the 1080.
Yeah.
And I love that.
The focus issue you're talking about has to do with the sensor size too.
Yeah.
The smaller the sensor, the more everything's going to be in focus. So if you look at news gathering cameras, those big chunky things people use at like CNN junkets and whatnot.
Yeah.
Those have a small sensor. And the reason is because it's too hard to manually focus when people are moving and you're trying to capture a scene that's happening. You can imagine you're covering a protest and there's people all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing's going to be out of focus if you're shooting with a large sensor camera.
Yeah.
So these have a smaller sensor, which is good for a podcast. That's what you want.
Yeah.
For narrative, which I do, you want a larger sensor because you want to select where the focus point is.
Okay.
It's more immersive. You're telling the audience where to look. So I can blur the background. I can blur the foreground. And it's all a very manual process. Although I won a camera in a short film competition, and it's a Sony FX3. It's the smallest cinema camera in Sony's lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got an autofocus where if you touch an actor's face just on the screen, it will lock focus on their eye. And it doesn't matter where they move, it will track them and keep them in focus, even though it's a full-frame, huge sensor camera.
That's pretty cool.
That kind of stuff didn't exist a few years ago.
Well, when you was talking about doing, Introverts Anonymous and all that other stuff, I think just in the time that I've researched doing this, and everybody telling me that I've had to do the video also, dude, 6 months' time, I mean, they've already upped the game more than what I was looking at. So, if y'all did that back in 2016, 2017, I mean, it's like a dinosaur now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because when I'm watching something with my wife, or we're trying to find something to watch on Netflix, and she sees the years like 2016, she's like, "Oh, I don't want to watch an old movie." I'm thinking an old movie. Yeah.
It's sad, but that's how bad. Yeah, not really. I guess you can't really call it bad, but I mean, the leaps and bounds in the technology. I mean, just on their website alone, the Blackmagic design. I mean, it is just astounding, some of the gear they've got.
Yeah, Blackmagic has a 12K camera.
Yeah, I seen it.
Yeah, and it's like $6,000 to buy the thing, and
which is unheard of.
it's just insane. And I don't know where this is going to go in 5 years, because the turnover rate for new technologies is so fast now.
Oh yeah,
that it's almost every 6 months there's something that's mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean those. They've got a 4K, and just for the record, Blackmagic Design is not paying me anything. This is just my personal opinion on it. The cameras they've got, the software that they're, you buy something, you get the software. Pay a little bit of an upgrade and you get the whole package of the software.
Yeah.
But when I got into editing on some of the stuff, and I'd never seen this before in my life, but that whole color, and it's a wheel, and you just drag your mouse and it changes the colors of everything. I mean, it's got auto white, auto this. I mean, you can do so much stuff with it. Mm-hmm. And when I seen, these streets, I was just like blown away. That's a great quality.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of that comes from what my DP, Dustin, did with camera, primarily shot selection and camera movement actually matter more than what camera you're using, especially now.
Yeah.
We shot that in 2018, but this was true even then. And that is, the capture formats are what they are. They're all good now.
Yeah.
But what you put in front of the lens matters a lot. So
I should never be on camera.
Things like set design.
That's why we put Lauren Perez in front of the camera.
Yeah, we put actors who are.
She was really good.
Yeah, she's good. She's cute as can be.
Yeah, and that other dude with the baseball bat, man, he still cracks me up.
Yeah,
Sam Brooks. Yeah,
Sam Brooks.
He still cracks me up, man.
He's a busy actor. He is always busy doing something. Yeah, and our lead, Matt Williams, he's another one. Matt was on Introverts. He played opposite the lead character in Introverts. I guess you could say co-star, and he's done.
I met both actors volunteering on other movies.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
That's what I meant about kind of not.
Yeah, that's how I met Lauren, volunteering for Malise.
Yeah. If you're only thinking about yourself and your projects, you don't meet the right people. I think sometimes in volunteering on other people's projects, you see kind of, I could collaborate with this person, or I like what this actor did with this scene. And then you can just talk to them and say, hey, I've got a project coming up. Do you want to look at it? And that's how I found both my lead actors. And I kind of knew I wanted to work with those two on Streets before I wrote the script. I had an idea for the story, but I said, let me write this for them. And I had made a short film. I made Introverts with Matt, and then with Lauren, we did a little musical for the 48-hour film project. Right. So I'd worked with both of them on shorter projects, and it got along just great.
Now, that shorter film project, though, is that the one we talked about before, where they give you a thing and you just go balls to the wall for 24 hours or something like that?
Yeah, you get 48 hours to write, shoot, and edit and hand in your film, and then they screen it and kind of judge it.
Dude, you got to make friends in the industry for that.
Well, I think the beauty of the collaboration that Jason refers to is we're not meeting these people through networking events where it's kind of like they put on their best face or whatever. We're actually
you're meeting them in a pressure chamber, basically.
Exactly. And the 48-hour film projects are pressure chambers. And, so you're really seeing them doing their craft, and you're really getting a wonderful idea of how, who this person is, how they respond, and so forth.
And the one that I met Matt on, I was just a volunteer. I was a script supervisor on it. And I met him. I said, I like this guy. He's got a good look to him. He's confident on camera.
He's from Pennsylvania too.
I met Lauren, another one I was volunteering on. Right. And I think you have to help other people if you're going to ask for those favors. And as an indie filmmaker, you will be asking at some point.
Well, and again, it's relationships. We've talked about that so many times. I worked with Lauren on a 48-hour film project. She played my daughter.
Right.
It was... We had a connection as a result of that. And this is what occurs. You get these connections, and it's almost serendipitous or fortuitous that you meet these people, and then you find yourself years later working with them. It's
and
pretty cool.
Not only Matt and Lauren, but Dustin Heyer.
Oh, yeah.
My DP for my last 3 movies. I met him on a 48 project where we were both volunteering for this other girl. So, it's just like kind of our whole team for this feature, we met by volunteering on the 48.
So you pretty much had through networking and friends and everything else, you just kind of built this whole little team, and then you was ready for the streets.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but it's not even networking. It's just going into the trenches together to make something for somebody else. That's what we did. And
I'd say that's awesome.
In a way, it's networking, but you just bypass all the BS stuff. You get right to the nitty gritty.
Yeah. Well, I know I met a young lady named Melise at a shoot that we did in Franklin, Tennessee, for like a demo that we were going to use for a film that we wanted to pitch to people.
Right.
And I happened to be standing. She was script supervisor, and I don't even know what I was doing there, to be honest with you. I had just moved back to town. I knew that, and so I was on set. And she just looked at me. She said, "Hey, if you're available in August," and this was in the dead of winter, if you're available in August, she said, I'm doing a 48-hour film project, which I had no idea what that was at the time. She said, maybe you could help on the project. And because we had talked a little bit, so she knew I was an actor and whatever. But so I said, yeah, you need me, I'm down. I said, you need a grip guy, you need whatever, crafts. I don't care what it is. I'll help you in any way I can. And ironically, on that particular shoot, the funny story on that was the day before we talked about, what we were going to do, but we weren't sure who was going to do what exactly. All I knew was we had a core group of Jason, Melise, and I don't know who all else, because I wasn't involved in it.
Handful of people. Yeah,
handful of people that were going to kind of be, brainstorming once they got the film concept and beginning to write a screenplay and so forth. Okay. So I just said, well, whatever it is, let me know in the morning. And so I got a text message that next morning. And you have to understand, Lauren was brought into town from Miami to be the lead in this particular project because Melise and her were close friends. So anyway, I got the text, and the text essentially said, bring a suit and some, dress clothes and your pajamas. You're the lead. And
a little context. So the way the 48 film thing works is Friday night you get your genre. So horror, musical, drama, whatever.
Oh, okay.
You get to pick from two options.
And that night, it usually happens like 7 p.m. that you draw it. And then you start writing the story at that point. And then for this particular one, I think I finished the screenplay at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Yeah. And then you start shooting it right away. And you edit all day Sunday and deliver it. And so we didn't have a story when he first volunteered. And I thought, okay, we need extra hands. He knows how to rig lights. He can be a grip or a gaffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but he's also an actor. And so at like 3 in the morning, I'd finished the script. I'm like, oh crap, I have to tell Thomas that he's actually the lead actor or the co-lead in this project. Totally unprepared. He thought he was just going to come up and move lights, And so I sent him.
Just be a grunt.
I sent him a text and I said, bring several changes of wardrobe. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, right. But they forgot to get me a script, though.
Well, yeah.
I show up on set with no script.
Hey, it'll be there when you get there.
Yeah.
No, he shot his first scene without any idea what was going on. Yeah.
That's the way I go through life most of the time anyway.
See to your pants.
Yeah. At one point, I did speak up and say, is there a script for this? Oh, yeah. Could I get one? What? You didn't get a script? No, I didn't get a script. Okay. I mean, the first scene was just a walkthrough. It was, certain movements that I was directed to do, and it was easy to do. But once I had to start talking, that was an issue.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you didn't even know what the story was about.
No, I had no clue. I was in every scene, but I had no clue what I was.
This is not uncommon on these 48s because they're just chaos from start to finish. Right. And kind of the idea is you're not going to get a masterpiece out of these. But if you can finish the movie,
you're doing something.
And somebody can watch it and not, stab their eyeballs, then you won, in my opinion.
True. Exactly.
Man, that's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it definitely was. He had more, I think, more work in terms of stamina than myself. because he started way earlier than me. I was home sleeping, but once I got there and we hit the ground running, it didn't stop until Sunday morning. From Saturday morning till Sunday morning, it was a nonstop, experience.
Yeah, because you got to have all your gear ready. You've got to have, once they give you the genre, you got to sit down there. They give you the location too, or y'all come up with that?
You have to find your own location, but they give you a prop and a genre. So a prop could be like a shoe or whatever it is. I forget what it was our year.
I'm trying to think what it was.
Well, like an ink pen or something?
Yeah.
That you have to use.
Because that essentially validates that this film is a current film, that you just filmed it. It's not something you pulled out of your off your shelf and said,
okay, yeah.
And then there's one line of dialogue that everybody has to have. It's
okay.
Well, there were actually the name of the one guy, the realtor.
That's right. You have to have a name.
The realtor's name had to be a specific name, and then as an actor, I had a specific phrase that I had to put in there as well.
Like a tagline.
Like a tagline. It all validates that it's, so every one of these films, and there were hundreds of them, had those same the name and the tagline contained within it, and you had to be creative enough to fit that in. Somehow it wasn't that complicated, but
the chaos is kind of the fun of it, and I think it's why people do it.
Yeah,
it's just if you can do it.
If you can,
it's a physical feat to stay awake for 3 days straight.
That's a hell of an adrenaline rush.
We should make up a T-shirt that says, I survived the 48-hour film project, because that's what it's paramount to. I mean, you're talking just nonstop.
This is actually the 48. Not to harp on this too much, but that's what pulled me back into filmmaking. Because Thomas and I kind of took a hiatus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I moved. I moved to Ohio, moved to Pennsylvania.
He moved. I moved to the Philippines briefly, came back, and then we weren't doing any film at all, or had plans of doing film at that point. I was writing novels, and I spent a few years writing 6 novels, and I didn't want to go back to film.
That's when you did the Lamp series.
That's when I did the Lamp series. I wrote The Island of Ted and All American Addict, another book.
I figured I'd just drive a truck like I'd been doing for 40,
it makes
50
money.
years, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a hiatus, and then had a friend, my friend David Perry, called me, and he's like, hey, there's a 48-hour thing. I'm producing it for this dude named Mott Key. He's really cool. Do you want to volunteer? You could be script super or something. And I said, I don't want to do film again. And he said, just do it. Just do it this once. It's a crazy experience. You'll have fun. And getting on set, just as a script supervisor, it just rekindled something. And I'm like, yeah, I remember why I like this.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, everybody was tired and hungry, and it just, it was one of those things.
Still, we're making film here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're up at like 3 a.m. with a bunch of other people trying to make a scene work.
Oh, yeah.
And, it reignited something for me. And I was kind of forced into that project. I didn't want to do it. I was just like, David talked me into it.
Yeah.
But I met Matt Williams on that project, who was my lead in Streets. And I volunteered again the next year. Or it might have been the year after that with Melise. Met Lauren on that one. And I'm like, I have 2 lead actors now. Yeah.
Hey, you rocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's doing unconventional things though. It's sort of like we're not, going to casting agencies and saying, who do you got? I've done that for other things, but
nothing that we've done has been conventional, and it's okay because we kind of figured out that the whole Hollywood thing is not where it's at for most of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the whole Hollywood thing. We tried that, right? When we first started doing film, we had to do, actual film. We had to do this because this is what Hollywood does. Even our feature streets, these streets we haunt, we kind of put it like, well, we need this department, this department, this department, this department. Subsequently, after doing that film, a lot of reflection, Jason and I have come to the conclusion that we could do the same film with the same production value,
right,
for about half the cost.
Oh yeah,
and reducing the amount. We had how many people on streets?
There was a core team of 6 to 7, depending on the day. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was relatively small, even for an indie film.
Yeah,
which might be like 5 to 12 people on set. This is not counting actors, but just kind of the core crew and the team, the producing team. So we had like 6 most days, I think, which is pretty small. But we
on the high side, we had sometimes 15, 20 people.
Not on that one.
Okay.
No.
We had a lot on
On Introverts Anonymous, we had
it was crazy.
We had a pretty big team on Introverts and our musical that we did with Lauren, which was a 48-hour project. I think we had like 35 people on set or something.
But that didn't cost us any money.
No, you're not allowed to pay people on those 48 projects.
Oh, so it's kind of like all volunteer stuff.
Oh yeah,
all volunteers.
It is.
Yeah.
Man, that is wild.
Yeah, we had kids coming, and I say kids because they were all in their 20s. I was the grandpa there on set. These kids come from Colorado, and and Lauren came from Miami, and they were coming from all over the country to do this 48-hour film project thing
For no money.
For no money, yeah. And kids, they're looking for a good time, an adventure, and it was. I mean, it was an adventure. It really was.
Well, that's something I've noticed. It's like what we were talking about, the way the technology has come forward with the cameras, the audio. This setup I've got right here, I would need an audio engineer. I'd need a video producer. And I'd need 3 people. You
need camera operators too, probably.
Well, yeah, the bigger cameras back then, I would have to have 3 different cameramen. Yeah. So, I would have a big crew here.
Yeah, you'd have a crew.
Hey, y'all working for free.
Exactly. But you always remember to feed them.
Well, yeah.
Don't forget that.
We've got cakes, cookies.
Right. I didn't say kill them. I said feed them. Cake and cookies. Oh, man. Yeah.
Man, I want to see some of those cameras you got, though.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get together.
I can bring them next time. Yeah. I don't know what Dustin's shooting on these days because we haven't worked on anything for a while. He's been working, but I haven't done any film stuff for a while other than some short films. But we can talk camera stuff. I love it.
Yeah, I think the last thing Dustin worked on was that I know of, anyways. I'm sure he's done stuff since, but it was Kid Rock. He did.
He shot a Kid Rock music video.
Yeah, Kid Rock music video.
Yeah, we were talking about that on the phone one day.
Yeah.
Sam Brooks, who played Pedro in the film, he's gone on to do some stuff. He's on a CW show.
Yeah, CW. He was Stargirl.
He was in a Netflix movie. He's a lot of these people are moving up in the world,
which is cool.
Hey, more power to them.
Yeah. We love to see it. It's always exciting to see somebody growing and following their dreams.
Oh yeah, that's I want to talk more about these streets we haunt.
Yeah.
And
ask away.
Basically, I want everybody to know straight up. Y'all can link all this stuff through streetsofficial.com. It goes straight to the movie,
books,
books,
and
all kinds of stuff.
Merchandise as well.
Well, we're doing the merchandising stuff.
There you go.
We actually, Thomas actually hooked me up with a real good guy, and hopefully we'll have our pages up and people can buy some merch. I'm gonna come up with some ideas for some different shirts and stuff.
Yeah, very cool.
So maybe some people will enjoy my little quips or something,
Right.
We're a bit late to the game on the merchandise.
Yeah,
stuff.
we are.
The movie's been out for a year and a half, and we're just now getting coffee mugs. But you know what? We're learning.
That's right.
Hey, it's
all
fun.
A process. Yeah,
I like the fun of it. Just putting stuff together. And that's what I've the business cards you gave me. I've been giving them out to people, and people have been watching the movie. And I've actually had friends of mine go, hey, that's a hell of a movie. These were 2 indie guys out of Nashville. And I'm like, well, yeah. So, everybody's just, the quality of the show is what blows me away the most.
That's why even people who didn't really dig the story said, it looks like a movie. You made a real movie.
Yeah.
What do you think I was doing?
Yeah.
Well, they have no concept. They think, look, a truck driver and what do you call yourself anyway?
What do you mean?
On your
professionally?
Job, your job, yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of on the IT side.
So, a truck driver and an IT guy get together. This sounds like a joke, right?
Yeah.
and they
make a thriller.
And then
they walked into a coffee shop.
They walked into a coffee shop and made a thriller. What can you expect, right? You're thinking, oh, yeah, right. That sounds like a real winner there.
Mm-hmm.
But then when people see it, they go, oh, my God, that's like a real movie. I'm going, yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, when I was doing the music business stuff, I was driving the truck Monday through Friday.
Right.
Weekends, I'm doing lights and sound all over Nashville. And it wasn't unheard of for somebody to, you ran into somebody, you talked to them, you compared notes on some stuff. Say I set up to do a sound show. I got a cable this long, dead.
Yeah.
I got no way to fix it. Music stores are closed at 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Oh, yeah.
I can't get it one. And the only thing I got is 3 guys' phone numbers on my phone going, dude, where are you at? I need that cable.
Yeah.
And within 30 minutes, one of those guys would show up.
Nice.
But you had to be there for them too. I mean, it was a great
Give and take.
camaraderie that came together, and that's what y'all were talking about. Just through the music industry myself, there was a lot of times I could not have done some of the stuff I did if I didn't have those guys there, and it was a great thing.
Yeah.
So these streets we haunt. When we was talking earlier, streets is not off the books. It's a derivative of one of the books.
It is set in the same world as the books, so the same mythology is present, but we're just following different characters.
Okay.
So that's kind of the idea. It's sort of the way if you see a prequel to a movie that you've seen, they're set in the same world, but they're following a different thing.
Right.
If you read the books, you'd be like,
well, that's why I'm gonna get the books, man.
It doesn't
I gotta
quite
read
relate to it, but it does.
No, if you read the novels, it'll explain a lot more about what you're seeing, and if you it works both ways too. If you watch the movie first and then you see or read the books, you'll get something out of it that you didn't get if you didn't.
Oh yeah.
Either watch it or read it. They work together. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't make the film hoping people would read the novels, because I spent a lot of time on them and I think they're valuable. They actually...
Agreed.
What I find fascinating, though, is in your mind, okay, you've wrote this series of books, and then you decide to make a movie, and you pull this, like a sub-story, out of one of the books, and then you create this feature film out of it, just out of the blue. I mean, I find that fascinating.
What I did was I couldn't film the series, the novel series. It was just too expansive and too big. The world was too expensive to put on film.
Well, imagine with that genre, it'd be like astronomical on set design.
You wouldn't be able to do it. It's a dystopian world. You wouldn't be able to do it on a micro budget.
Right.
So I thought, well, okay, I can take maybe the mythology of the villains from this story and what they're all about,
and just extract it out of that world.
Yeah, because what I explored in the novels, and less so in the movie, is this idea that evil is not evil doesn't appear to you as evil. It's always attractive.
Well, yeah.
So if something appeared to you as obviously wrong, you wouldn't do it. Nobody would do it.
No, that's why I'm divorced 3 times. So
the fact that yeah, but the dark side, so to speak, if it didn't come to you as presenting as attractive, you'd never pay it any attention.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to say, okay, well, what is attractive about this world, of these villains, and are they the villains? In the novels, you kind of don't know for a long time who the villains are and who the good guys are.
Okay.
Because both worlds have something appealing about them, All right. And I wanted the characters who are going through this journey to be pulled to both sides the whole time, and even leave the reader wondering kind of who is the good side here. Now you find out very clearly in the last book.
Yeah.
But that tension that I wanted to explore with these characters is a tension that I feel, that you feel, when a challenge or something that obviously isn't good for us presents itself. There's something attractive about it, or you'd never go toward it.
Right.
So what do you do with that? That's kind of the idea that I was exploring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when I first seen it, I was the thing that pulled me in the most to the movie was actually the very first part of the movie, all the way up to when she rented that apartment from that guy, because there was a mystique about all of that. What's so important about this girl, and that's what drew me in to watch all of it. And then Of course, once it all got rolling real good, I was just like, wow, I love this.
Yeah. Yeah. If you like those themes and you kind of like that world, the novels will give you way more of that, because when you write novels, it's different because you have an unlimited budget. It's just your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to some crazy places in the novels.
Oh, yeah.
Very inexpensively.
Very
yeah.
inexpensive. Yeah, it's just paper.
It's a beautiful thing.
Find a publisher, put it up. You're good.
Well, that's another interesting point, too, with regard to getting our film out there. I think that's kind of an interesting little tidbit because we're nobodies. We don't have connections in LA and so forth, but we just kind of threw them out there. I mean, Jason put together a bio and the trailer you sent
for the distributor. You mean?
Yeah,
I did a lot of research on which distributors actually paid the filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds
an important
ridiculous,
concept, yeah.
but it's a rarity that the money owed to the filmmaker won't be lost in creative accounting or something like that.
Right.
Happens all the time.
And there's a filmmakers forum where a bunch of filmmakers get together and they talk about their experiences with different distributors.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of weed out the bad ones. This one would say, oh, they promised me this. There was an $80,000 expense cap, blah, blah, blah. I never saw a dime, even though the movie was #1 on iTunes or something.
Yeah.
And so out of that list, I sent the film to several people. It wasn't right for most of them, but there was one called Indie Rights.
Mm-hmm.
And Indie Rights had a good reputation for paying the filmmaker, and they were completely transparent with their books.
That's good.
Meaning I not only get to see what my film made on every platform each quarter, I get to see what all of the films in their catalog make.
So you get an overview of
completely wide
analytics.
open. Exactly, yeah. And so I get to see what kind of movies are doing well and where they're doing well. And the reason they do this kind of thing, one is just they want to be honest, but also it helps the filmmaker make their next film because you see what's doing well,
Yeah.
Not that you're chasing trends, but it does help to have a bird's eye view of kind of like the landscape of where the audiences are.
Yeah. I think mainly because most any screenwriter, filmmaker, whatever, has got numerous ideas in their portfolio. So it's not all one area necessarily. And so when you see that particular rundown, you go, you know what? I've got a film that would be great in this particular area, and obviously right now they seem to be doing very well. So I might want to consider doing that.
I think indie movies are doing better now than some of the big name guys.
Some of them are. I've seen the data. I know exactly what some of those are making, and it's mind blowing. Yeah, and a lot of ones, a lot of good films right now are falling through the cracks too, just because there's a glut of content. The barrier to entry is so low now that a lot of really bad cheap films are getting made. Mm-hmm. So the good cheap films are. It's harder to stand out of the crowd. So you almost have to start thinking about, your audience before you write the script.
Right.
And is it an audience? Is it one that exists?
Mm-hmm.
You could get this in front of. With Streets, I didn't do that. One thing is I thought there'd be more crossover between the readers of the novels and maybe a film based around that mythology.
Right.
That's not so much the case because people who read like to read in their spare time. They
Well,
don't like to
you
watch
create that movie in your mind while you read.
Yeah, and people who like thriller movies maybe don't like to read thriller novels, And so I thought there would be a crossover there, but I've seen the data and there's not crossover. So people who like to read stick to books. People who spend their time watching movies tend to like watching movies.
Yeah. I mean, it's well, with Netflix and chill and everything else going on now, I mean, nobody's going to the movies anymore. They're just doing it right there at the house.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, if you notice what's coming out in theaters right now, it's just tentpole movies.
Mm-hmm.
High dollar stuff that maybe would be more enjoyable to watch on a big screen.
Yeah.
But they also have day and date releases, which is just when the movie comes out in the theater, it's also available on some streaming platform the same day, like HBO Max.
Yeah. But now that you've got all the gear and everything, if you was to start, say, February 1st,
Give me 3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Give you 3 weeks.
It's better than 48 hours.
That's true.
You started a movie February 1st. You've already got the good gear. You've already got this great mind that just comes up with stuff. You could probably do a script, have everything ready, and turn out another good quality movie like Streets. Say Streets 2.
There's been a lot of people asking about that, actually.
I've actually had people ask me about it too.
Yeah.
That's why I rung it up.
I get messages and emails about it. People say, "When's the
sequel?
next one coming out?" And I'm like, "Well,
Well, I mean, the way you did it in the movie and the characters, it all led up to that very last part of the movie. And I can tell you right now, everybody I know, they all sat there and went, when's the next one coming out? I got to see what happened, you know?
that was intentional." And if you read the novel series, other than the first book, they kind of each end on a bit of a cliffhanger. And so you're like, "Oh crap, I got to buy the next one now." But yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, if you make a sequel to something, there has to be enough interest in it, and there is interest in it, just not enough for me to warrant the expense of it.
And that,
You know, and it's not just, yeah, we have the equipment, I have lights, I have cameras, I have, resources.
it's pretty much just a monetary business.
You're still
Yeah, now you're back down to the
revenue-
monetary.
Yeah, the revenue that we're
Yeah.
generating off of Streets currently, it's great, but it's not really warranting another film, and and the expense that's involved.
Yeah, if the movie had made back its budget the first month or the first week, then I'd be like, "Oh, there's definitely interest here." But the fact that it's making money, but it's not a blockbuster.
Yeah.
That would.
See, that I'm one of those guys, and I watched it, and I'm with the other people, and they're all with me, and I'm just like, dude, okay, you made $20 on the first one, but I'm telling you,
If you make the
I'm
next one,
telling
it's going
you.
to get you your money back. Yeah.
you pop this second one off, just right out, just boom, you're going to get $150 in 3 weeks after it comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just me.
And that's possible. It's just a matter of convincing the people holding the money. I understand what you're saying. Whereas if you have the resources, just go make it. But there are things you can't really get around.
Well, you got to have licensing and all that other stuff, and
Not even that really. It's more so you're paying actors. You're paying even if you have a shrunk down crew, which I prefer, you're still paying them.
Yeah.
You're still feeding everybody, and you're still usually paying for locations if you want halfway decent locations.
yeah.
And that alone, at a minimum, is going to cost you the chunk of the budget.
Well, it all depends. I know some realtors. I can find you some locations.
Give me some numbers. We'll talk.
That's as good as resources.
Also,
good
like
as
if-
money.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I need is an honorable mention
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
very end.
You got it.
Easy
Yeah, that's
enough.
that's what I meant by kind of money versus resources, because they're the same thing.
Yeah,
What you spend money on is resources, and if you have the resources, you don't need the money. There's a bare minimum you still need, but it shrinks considerably when you have enough resources.
yeah, that's my big thing. I mean, even with this, I had that upfront cost. Then I had that research and development and my boo-boos cost. And then I'm down to a very small little thing, as far as continuing the podcast and all that. You got to pay that little hosting fee and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And it's,
I think you could offset all of that by just doing voiceover work.
well, I am available.
Yeah,
There you go.
I actually do other voices too, and I mean, you tell me what you want, I'll do it.
yeah. The people watching this don't know, but his dad is Sam Elliott.
Yeah, there you
Go
go.
look him up.
And that's what's weird. My dad, he had this voice too.
Mm-hmm.
He had a deep, manly voice, and when I think I was like 13, 14 years old, he sang in the church choir every Sunday, man. He
Baritone,
was up
obviously.
there, and
Belting them out, huh?
he was belting them out, and then of course, I hit that age, and certain things dropped and things happened, and
Right.
My voice wasn't as deep as his, but I was just a little bit above his.
Mm-hmm.
And we were up there harmonizing like crazy in the church choir,
I'll be there.
and I loved it. But then over years, my family would always tell me, hey, you got this voice, dude. You need to do something, and I just, if it wasn't for you and Eric, and after I met, Mr. Cunningham, I am where I am right now, and I'm hoping to make it bigger and better, and I just enjoy it now. I mean, it's a great little fun thing to do. I just have a lot of fun out of it.
Yeah, great way to spend a day.
Yeah, it beats going out and hitting bars and running lights and putting a lot of money into something that you're not ever going to get it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get it. It's the artist's kind of condition. You know what I mean? You find something valuable that other people are like, oh, okay, and you're like, no, this is my thing. I think this is my thing.
Well,
like this.
I do announcing every now and then when I was doing lights and sound. Introduce the next guest, or introduce this band, or I did some of that every now and then, and it was fun. But it just I never thought anybody really liked my voice. And I was not a fan. I was just, it's my voice.
Yeah, nobody likes their own voice.
I'm envious. Like when I listened to that last podcast, I think I texted Thomas and I said I sounded like a squirrel on helium. I said I envy you guys. You got
I don't
manly
consider
voices.
I have a deep voice. Not in the least. But
Well, there was audio problems with that last one that we tried to do.
That wasn't the issue.
No, your voice actually, I like your voice. I like Thomas's voice. And it's the ones that squeak, the real squeaky ones. There was one voice, I can't even remember her name.
Maybe you shouldn't say it.
yeah.
I'm not going to say it, but the accent that was with it and everything was just annoying.
Not good.
Yeah, it was a female actress, and I'm real bad with those things. It just kind of gets on my nerves.
Sure. I think we all have some of that.
Yep. So everybody needs to go to Streets Official. They need to send Jason or Thomas a message saying, "Part 2, please."
Yes. And if they'd like to be an extra in one of our films, they can hit the contact us info and give us their name and email, and we'll hit them up when we do our next feature.
You know what I'd consider doing is everybody who wants to see a sequel, if they all donated into a pot.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
yeah.
I mean, you could take, they've got things now like Buy Me a Coffee, or, they can send to a Venmo account, make donations. They can do all kinds of stuff now. Oh, there's a lot of people doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been so conditioned that we don't like asking for money.
We're old
We
school.
Just soon do it ourselves. Right?
And not only that, but we're a little, it sounds so strange coming from guys like us who are nobodies, but we're very selective too about potential investment money. We're not going to take money from anybody. It kind of depends what your mindset is too. If you're in alignment with what we're trying to do, then we'll talk to you. Otherwise, we'll just do everything ourselves.
But then you got somebody wanting to, okay, I'm going to write you a check for $1 million. I want my granddaughter in it, and I want such and such FaceTime. I want these words said, and here's all the other stipulations I've got, or you don't get that check.
Right. And it doesn't
that's
necessarily
the thing.
mean that we couldn't do that, but it's you'd have to look at it case by case, right?
To me, that's a sellout.
Oh, it is.
It's
agree,
big time.
but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
some people would look at it and go, "Okay, well, is your granddaughter, can she act?" And
No,
these
she
things-
can't.
Oh, then forget about it. That's all I got to say.
No, because it's not gonna help my reputation to make $1 million film that sucks.
Yeah.
It's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
You
Oh, you got to have pride. We talked about that.
On that same note, the part that Phil Valentine played in our film, initially Jason wanted me to play, and I read the part, and quite frankly, I just wasn't feeling it, And that's kind of how we got hopped over to talking about Phil. we talked about it. I said, Jason, I'm just not feeling it. I said, but who'd be great for this part? And he said, who? I said, Phil Valentine. He said, seriously? I said, yeah. He said, do you know him? I said, well, I've met him, but we're not like buds. And I said, let me hit him up and see. So I did, and he did, and the rest is history.
And I did make him audition.
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, you got to.
But my point was simply, I looked at Jason and said, look, I don't think I'm the guy for this role. And since it's our film, I don't want to mess it up. I want to get the very best that we can get. And if that means me bowing out, I'm more than happy to do it.
Yeah.
Just because I'm co-owner of the company and I could put myself wherever I want to, doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do. So, fortunately, that's where we ended up with Phil Valentine, thankfully.
Everybody missed a big thing of it. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to make me another movie? Or are you going to play around? I mean, you got to do streets too, man. I'm telling you.
If there's enough interest, and by interest, I mean financial interest.
I have to as well.
He's trying to sneak away for a bathroom break, but that's not,
You know what? That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do the same.
Well, you can't just leave me on.
Hold down the fort, Jason.
This means he's going to have to edit this
Tell
project.
him about your piano playing.
I don't play the piano. These old men, they can't hold their bladders. All right. This is going to be considered dead air because I don't know how to host without a guest. I have this guy. I don't know who this is. Sir, how did you get in this condition? It's creepy. Your eyes are weird. Let's see what else is over here. I wish you guys could see what I see. It's kind of cool. There's 3 cameras. There's a cool looking audio board. I can see my meters right now. My levels seem good. Check 1, check 2, and he's back. You miss some enthralling stuff there.
Some thrilling stuff.
Yeah. I interviewed Lieutenant Grayskull here. He's not much on words.
I got to apologize to y'all because it was like, we've been sitting here for 2 hours talking, and I was trying to be nonchalant about it and kind of sneak away. And of course, Eric screwed me up, and I wrote this. I said, I got to go, man.
And at the same time, Thomas had to go as well, leaving me just sitting here.
Yeah, I heard that. I was like, no, Thomas, give me 5 seconds,
Yeah, I got to coordinate your bladders next time.
I know. He's. You can suggest to him just one little thing, and he's got to go.
I know. Yeah.
Now
I have to go because you guys are talking about it.
Well, I mean, let's see. I had it on a good camera angle, and of course, he screwed it all up, took off.
There we go.
Man, he's killing me. Look.
Don't edit this out. You got to leave all this.
I am leaving this in. Come on, you mooch.
Gold.
Come on.
This is what the people come for.
Use guys, man.
I'm 66 years old. I did the best I could do. Go easy on me.
Have we been going 2 hours? Is that real?
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, God. Okay.
Well, last time when we did it, it was like an hour and 15, and you were like, it's been an hour already? And I'm like, yeah, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, when you start going, man.
Yes.
That's what I love about it. I mean, just sit down and have a conversation with people. You learn a lot of good stuff.
At my age, when you start going, sometimes you stop, and then you go again, and then
Yeah,
you stop,
well,
and
you
you
know.
go again.
Yeah, we were a little bit scattered, but I think that's the way conversations go, though. You're kind of like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if we were sitting here playing cards. Hey, you got to go? You got to go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Or we started talking about this, and now this is more interesting. Let's go over here and
Yes.
explore this idea. for a
It's just the way it is.
minute. Yeah.
And I think that really gets back to, honestly, something that a lot of people are missing nowadays, especially with the COVID and everybody being home and everything else. You don't really get to hear a lot of conversations.
Well, you got a lot of this going on.
Well, yeah, And the sad part about it is Simon and Garfunkel wrote a song about that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Which
It says specifically in the song, if you listen to the sound of silence.
Oh, the sound of
It
silence.
says stop staring at your iPhone. That's right.
Yeah.
No,
I seem to recall
it
that.
says heads are bowed to the neon god we made.
Oh, okay.
I
I
mean,
do remember that lyric. Yeah.
It's
what was
right-
he talking about?
Yeah, what was he referring to?
it's a neon glow. Whenever
We
you
didn't
see
even
somebody,
have cell phones back then. When they
no,
did that.
but you do now.
Yeah.
And what are everybody doing?
You're saying Paul Simon was a
Prophetic.
prophet.
He was a prophetic individual, yeah. Paul the
Prophetic.
prophet. We talking about Paul Simon or Paul the
Or
Roman?
what was his
It
name?
doesn't
Gene
matter.
Garfunkel was his name?
Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a firm believer that a lot of people, they write things and they create things.
Right.
Kind of like what Jason does. You know, he creates books and movies, and there's a vision there.
Right.
And I do believe that a lot of lyricists and writers, in some shape, fashion, or form, can foretell a lot of things that are coming.
We are the new prophets.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
we're
The
not.
new prophet starring you.
Well, you know what's funny though? I've heard that, if you go back and you read like Isaac Asimov and these old science fiction writers, the stuff they're describing is actually kind of like iPads and things that we're
Yeah.
using now, and it's like fiction created the reality we're in.
Yeah.
I'll tell my wife that sometimes. Like we're living in the future
Yeah.
because there's like AI now.
Oh, yeah.
There's more Teslas driving around, my neighborhood than there are like Toyotas. And I'm like, this is just the future. We're living in the future. But all this stuff is like, you can find it in old literature.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You know,
How
and
do they
that's,
describe this?
well, I mean, a little bit of a throw out. Dave Mustaine, some of the stuff that he has wrote. I mean, Peace Sells, Who's Buying? And then Symphony of Destruction. If you listen to those, I mean, it's like, dude, that stuff's been happening in the world here way after he wrote it.
Yeah.
And Iron Maiden's a big one, of course. I'm a big Iron Maiden fan. I love a lot of their stuff. But they do more of kind of like a history. I mean, if you listen to an Iron Maiden song, you're listening to a history. You go over onto the other side, and you got a lot of people that are singing about stuff that hasn't really happened yet, but it's coming to it. And I find it prophetic. Or prophetic. How do you say that? Prophetic?
I would say prophetic.
I think
Prophetic?
it depends how pretentious you are.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. Prophetic,
I say prophetic.
There
Prophetic?
you go. Tomato, tomato.
Well, That's crazy.
Yes.
Well, we've had our pee break. Now what are we going to do?
I don't know. I'm pretty relaxed right now. Kind of enjoying myself.
Yes, speak for yourselves. There's a famous quote from Alfred Hitchcock where he said that the length of a film should be directly tied to the what did he say, the how long you can hold your bladder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
man.
it depends on your age, too.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Cameron's putting out these 3-hour movies, and nobody's bladder can last
No.
that long.
In fact, I have to admit, I struggled when we showed our film at the theater at the Premiere 6 in Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make it through the entire film.
Yeah,
I had to get up and go to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
And our film's what, an hour and 40?
Yeah.
Or an hour and 47, whatever. But yeah, I felt really bad because I had not seen the film up until that point.
Yeah.
So
Now, is that weird for you? I mean, you go in, you do the acting, you've got certain parts, but then when it's all done, I mean, you don't really know how well you did on it or anything else, and you just got to wait for the final product to come out.
Yeah, what's it like watching a final cut of something when you didn't see any iteration of it?
I was always
You were on
curious
set.
about that.
well, first off, in this particular film, "These Streets We Haunt," I had a very minor role. I played the father of the lead character, and I
Right.
was in a montage.
He was in.
So I
he
had no
hugged
dialogue
somebody.
or anything. I was just sitting there drinking wine and eating lasagna,
Right.
and it was a family gathering.
But it's on something like Streets where you don't see it until you see the final version of it.
yeah, well, that was on purpose though, because when I talked about it earlier. I told Jason, this is yours. I want you to do your thing. I want this to be at the end of the day your vision. Okay, so in a way, not truthfully, but it sounds like in a way I was like copping out, right? It's like, this is on you, buddy. If it goes to crap, it's all you. But it wasn't that. It was really trying to be a learning, situation where I'm saying, you can't blame anybody for this project. I'll provide a percentage of the funding and moral support and whatever else you may need. But beyond that, I'm not going to critique it. I'm not going to tell you what to do, how to do it. Regardless if I'm on set or not on set, I'm not putting my 2 cents in.
Yeah.
My wife was the same way too, because obviously it was our finances involved with it. She didn't even read the script. She had no idea what the story was until she saw the premiere in the theater.
Right. Yeah, and that's the same thing with me. I mean, I knew, what the screenplay was and so forth, but again, until I saw it. And so when I saw it, first off, I mean, they floored me when they had, which is unrelated, but it meant a lot to me. My wife, passed away in 2020, had a massive heart attack, and she was my world. And she worked her ass off on that film, as did she work on other films that we've done. She's been there by my side for years, doing whatever it took, bookkeeping,
right,
you name it. Okay, she'd script supervisory, catering. It didn't matter. Whatever I needed, she was there, and she was supportive. And so, at the end of the film, when they're running credits, I saw that they put in there, and I didn't know this, they put a in memory of, and my wife, her name was Karen, for those of everybody that doesn't know her, didn't know her. But she had a voice to me that was so sweet and so innocent. And to me, it was like a little birdie, like a little chickadee,
Yeah.
And so I used to call her Peeps. And for whatever reason, it stuck because other people would hear me say it. I didn't even stop and think. I just call her Peeps in public. And eventually my mother would say to me things like, oh, hey, how's Peeps doing? Or she'd say, hey, Peeps called me. I had a nice conversation with her the other day or whatever, right? And people on set were calling her, hey, Peeps, And so they had a thing in memory of Karen Peeps Marino.
Sweet.
And
see, I never knew that meant anything to you.
Oh,
You never
no.
told me.
Man, I
just finding out.
I cried, man. I mean, I did, because that was, that woman was undaunting, and she was by my side, and she could argue. Oh my God, we could get into. She was very stubborn, just like me, and we would get into these opposing opinion conversations. That in fact, Greg, the fellow that produced this and the mugs and so forth, he's been a good friend of mine for many years. He was privy to a lot of what was going on in my wife and my relationship, just because he was around a lot. And he would see us having these moments, where we'd get, I'm Italian, so I'd get loud, and she was Italian, she was not even remotely Italian, but she was Italian by proxy, because
she was Irish though, which is kind of in some ways Italian.
Yeah, because she would get just as loud as me. And
Irish are stubborn and hard-headed.
Oh
too,
yeah,
so.
and the hand movements and what. And so we'd get into these heated, disagreements or whatever you want to call them. They weren't arguments because there were nothing hateful about them. But I remember one time he told me afterwards, he said, we were in a group of people and we got into this thing. And it wasn't, like ridiculously crazy, but people were a little, as we say in Italian, a little nervous. They were getting nervous because like, what the heck's going on here? Were they somebody getting ready to hit somebody or whatever? And they said something to Greg, and Greg looked at me, he says, oh no, he said, they're fine. He said, trust me, they're just communicating.
Oh yeah.
This is the way they do it. And it was true, because the thing that endeared her to me when we were, before we got married, was we would have one of these disagreements that would get very, very loud. And like 5 minutes after we were done, she'd look at me and she'd say something like, so what would you like for supper? And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? This is beautiful. Because she doesn't hold a grudge. She's not going to make me pay for this disagreement. And
she gets you.
She got me. Yeah, it was totally that way. So anyway, all that to say that, that I was sad that she didn't get to see the final product.
Yeah.
She worked her tail off, but she didn't get to see the final product. But, you know, it was so, to me, touching when I saw that on the screen. And as long as that film's out in the ether, it's going to be...
It's there forever, baby.
It's there forever, you know, in memory of Peeps, you know, Karen Peeps Marino.
Yeah, because it's digital. It's out there.
Yeah, it meant a lot to me. It really did. I didn't realize that
What sucks is she never got to see the movie, even though she was a producer on it.
Yeah.
She saw the trailer, you know, and then she passed right before the final cut was locked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, that's sad.
So for me personally, it's been a great loss. I mean, my life is much, you know, more difficult and arduous and empty and so forth. But
we can call and argue with Eric every now and then.
well, we can. But you know, the thing of it is it'll give me, you know, every experience in my life, and I've had a lot of upheaval and trauma and whatever, like everybody does. I mean, you can't escape this thing, right, without some kind of issues or trauma. But I use those things to pull when I'm acting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that's why for me acting is very real, because the emotions that I emote are emotions that are my emotions. They're real, and in some cases, you know, Jason, he's kind of got an upper hand because he knows my history.
Right.
He knows my story, and so when he's writing various things, he knows how to hit the buttons. And he doesn't do it on purpose, and sometimes he's actually, well, maybe, but there are times, I mean, he'll say to me something like, hey, you know, this is going to be pretty intense the way I wrote it. You know, are you cool with it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, I am, because that's reality.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to communicate, right?
We did end up kind of scrapping one idea for our next feature that I kind of, you know, didn't base on Thomas, but it was written for Thomas.
Yeah.
And it was a little too close to home. And so maybe when there's some distance, we can revisit that project.
Yeah, you got to put that time in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have been an issue of me getting him into character. It would have been, you know.
Yeah, I live there. You know, it's my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a character in yourself.
Yeah. He always said that to me, and I never could really figure that out. You know, you're a character.
Yeah.
Just by yourself.
Yeah.
If enough people tell you that, you might want to listen.
Might want to listen. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's, my mom used to, she'd tell me all the time, she's like, you're just like your uncle sometimes. And I said, who? I got two uncles.
Yeah.
She said, you are just like Virgil. And I said, excuse me? She said, yeah, you will argue with a stop sign. And I said, look, if that stop sign don't need to be there, then I do not see red. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep going.
Okay. Remind me not to drive with you.
Yes, exactly.
That was when I was younger.
Okay.
I was a rebel.
Virgil wore off, huh?
Well, I was a rebel with a 67 Mustang fastback. So, I mean, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Now, is Virgil going to listen to this?
No, actually, Virgil passed away.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
I think I can't remember exactly how many years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5. But he was a character in himself. I mean, he would, if he had this idea in his head, and this is the way it was, and he firmly believed that, he would sit there and argue with you until you was ready to go to bed, and then he'd stand over your pillow telling you, see, I told you was wrong.
Right.
You know, that's just the way he was.
Karen was like that.
Almost like an Italian family.
Yeah, when we were discussing the screenplay with Jason, there was going to be, at least theoretically, one F-bomb in the film. And my wife was, she was a Southern gospel artist. For many, many years, she toured and recorded and so forth. So she wasn't having any of that. And she laid it out pretty much. We're not writing any check unless we're assured that there's no F-bombs in the film. And we kind of went round and round because I saw Jason's point. I got it. But then
one thing is I use that kind of language very sparingly, and I do that for a reason. It's because anytime a writer overuses emphatic languge, devalues the thing they're trying to emphasize.
Right.
Well, that's one thing I did like about y'all's movie. I mean, I've seen some movies, man. It's like, okay, start the swear word counter now.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the end of the movie, you got 150 something swear words.
Yeah, just
And it's
gratuitous.
It devalued it.
Yeah.
It's a pet peeve of mine because it's lazy writing.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's the caveat. When Karen said no F-bombs, it was a well-placed one during an argument when I couldn't think of a substitute word that would feel honest that character would say.
Right.
And so this is what I presented to Karen, and I think what she told me back was no.
Still, figure it out. Yeah.
How about fudge? Can we do fudge?
And you know what's funny is that scene that we argued for probably an hour about got cut out of the movie anyway. It was not even in the movie.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my God. That was kind of pointless.
Yeah, but you don't know what's pointless until after the fact.
Right.
We thought it was a big moment. We're like, this is because it was a big argument in the film that I spent the most time writing, actually, that one scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems funny looking back now saying it's not even in the movie at all. But
So-
the reason it's not in the film had to do with pacing.
Right.
That's a tricky thing.
I have no clue. What's pacing?
Pacing is, okay, you know pacing when you watch something and it starts to get boring.
Yeah.
That's the moment the pacing's off.
Okay.
And ours was, we were already like an hour and 30 minutes deep into the film when this argument happens. And it's not an argument that's resolved in the final scene. And so we're like, okay, this is a tangent. And even though it's a powerful scene, and the actors actually did a great job on it. It was a very emotional scene. They killed it.
Mm-hmm.
But it slowed down the pacing too much. And
Okay.
I had to talk with my editor about it. And I said, Lori, I think we got to cut that scene and the following scene, which also took us a whole day to shoot. And I said, is that a stupid idea? And she said, no, I'm surprised because no director I've ever worked with has me cut stuff out of the film. They all want to leave everything in.
Right.
And I said, it's just, it slows it down too much for me. I don't like it. Even though it's one of the better acting performances in the film. And she said, you know what? I actually agree with you. Let's cut it.
Well, see, that's what I was curious about too, because I didn't know if you directed the movie, you got everything done, you put it in the can, you send it to the editing. I didn't know exactly what part the director actually had in the editing room.
That's a great question because it's there's not one answer to it. And on some of the half of the films I'll cut myself.
Okay.
I just enjoy doing it. With this one I didn't want to because I wrote the script, I directed it, I was too close to it.
Right.
I thought, okay, well let me hand this off.
You had more of your heart in it.
Yeah, and I didn't think I could be as objective.
Okay.
So I wanted someone who could be a little bit more ruthless with the material, and if the scene's not working, it's not working. Whereas I might be tempted to keep it because it's my baby. You know?
Right.
Called integrity.
Ah.
Well, I just want it to be a good movie, and I don't want to sabotage myself by doing that. And when a director edits his own work, that doesn't always happen.
Right.
Because you can always invite people into the edit room and say, what do you think of this? Am I on the right track? But with this one, being my first feature, I didn't trust myself to cut it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so Lori, the editor, she had done, I think, 8 features before this, so she was the more experienced person. And so
Definitely had a track record.
Yeah, so I did acquiesce to her on many issues where we didn't see eye to eye, and I just kind of trusted her experience in it. And that's kind of the process. It's like she will, I didn't see a frame of footage until she had the first pass of the edit done of the whole movie.
Okay, so you wasn't even in there with her. She just did it all
Nope.
by herself.
Yep.
Okay.
And the first cut I saw was about 2 hours and 8 minutes long.
Okay.
And the script is like 90 pages. Usually it's a page a minute. That's how it works out.
Okay.
So it should have been 90 pages. So the scenes ran a bit long. There were quite a few scenes we ended up taking out just for time.
Mm-hmm.
That was tough. And the reason that was tough is because those scenes helped explain plot holes in the movie.
Okay.
When we took those out, because they made the film flow faster, it created plot holes because those scenes were removed.
Okay.
And so we had this dilemma, like, well, what are we willing to live with? Some minor plot holes or boring moments of the film? You know, and it's already kind of a slow-paced movie anyway. So
Yeah.
I said, well, okay, I'd rather people have questions about the plot here and there than be bored to death and turn it off.
Right.
So that was the compromise. And there's always a compromise when you make something.
Well, that's why I was curious about, because, you know, you see several movies that come out, well, back in the 80s. And then like 10, 15 years later, you see them come back out again, and it's like director's cut.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why wasn't the director in the room when it was being cut, to begin with?
That's a good question. One reason is because with studio films, the director doesn't always get final cut.
Okay.
And so a lot of times the final cut that's approved by the studio will be different than the vision they had.
Well, that's
and then the director has to live with that, and it sucks, because you're known as the guy who made that movie, but that isn't the movie you wanted to release.
But in the indie world, wouldn't you have more?
Yes, and that's the advantage of it. That's the advantage of doing indie films is you don't have a bunch of studio executives saying, we ran this in front of his test audience, and they don't like the color of this guy's hat, so let's, sometimes it's so arbitrary. But
I mean, that's funny, the hat thing, but that is probably real.
They get very pedantic about how to make your movie, you know. And in the studio system, the advantage of it is they throw money at the project because they want it to succeed, know, and they, you're working with A-list talent, and those are the advantages. And the disadvantages are you're not as free to tell the story you want to tell. And with Streets is not a movie that would ever get green light by any studio because it doesn't meet the 4-quadrant thing they always talk about, where you're trying to hit every demographic.
That takes away from
creativity.
To me. Yeah, that really curtails your creativity.
It's about a balance, supposedly, but the balance is imbalanced because it's usually more toward money than it is creativity.
Well, yeah, the whole financial.
Because, they're running a business. And so, this is the criteria that we have set up, and it's got to fit. And if it doesn't, we make it fit. If it doesn't fit,
and the problem is
make it fit, you pitch it.
That creates a homogeny in Hollywood where every film kind of feels the same or feels just very familiar. Than if you watch 10 Netflix movies that were made in-house by Netflix in a row, it'll feel like the same movie with different actors.
Yeah.
And it's just because they have that homogeny now. And this is one reason I love indie, and I haven't taken, because there's a different path for a director to direct Hollywood movies. And I haven't taken that path because I enjoy the control of it.
Right.
That to me is just, it's the reason you do it.
Well, yeah.
Somebody might say, well, you do it for a huge paycheck that the studio might give you. Yeah. But I have a job. I don't need that. What I want is to tell a story, and to tell a story that I don't see all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we know a guy who made a studio film, got paid, fairly well, but he's not the least bit happy with the outcome of the film because, from a creative standpoint, it's not what he was wanting to do.
Oh, it's very common. It's
not him.
Yeah, exactly.
Not his vision.
Still got his name attached to it, and you deal with it. I mean, at least you got something to go to the bank with. I mean, that's one consolation. But if you really care about your art and that's your thing, then it's a disappointment. It's like selling out, right?
Well, to me, to go make a studio film, we're talking about like months away from my family, and I don't know how to justify that if in the end, what is the result? It's a movie that's basically, the story is sculpted by a bunch of people wearing suits saying, yes, this, no, that, whatever, and disregarding the original vision of the person who directed it.
I mean, they possibly could not even got the vision to begin with. They were just, this might make a monetary gain,
Yeah. And it's even more prominent in TV production, and series, Netflix series, Amazon series, Hulu. They all do these in-house series. And a director who's working on a TV series might do 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah.
There's a new director every single time. And so you're walking onto a set with established actors who've been playing these roles sometimes for years. The crew's been filming it for years. And you're just some dude who shows up. You didn't write it. You look at the script and you say, okay, I'm the director for today. So you have even less control in TV production. So for me, in the indie world is kind of where it's at if that's your mindset of, I want to do something interesting.
Well, that's where I was noticing a lot of people are more going towards the indie stuff. So, that's why I wanted to get you guys on here, because I'm curious. I want to know.
Well, also from a creative standpoint, great doing indie work, but because of the technology being what it is today, as an indie person, you can do these things now you couldn't do before. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
Jason gets to be creative, dream and build his vision, and we can do it in a way that people go, wow, that's a real film, which is crazy great.
That's crazy though. That term, that's a real film.
A real film. Yeah, it really looks like a real film.
You have to understand,
dude.
like what a cool. And I don't know if people mean this as a backhanded compliment. Like, I didn't like the story about it. It looks like a movie, but back in the '90s, when I was growing up, '80s and '90s, indies, the best they could do was to shoot on 16 millimeter film, and it never looked like 35.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could always tell an indie movie by just watching it.
Yeah.
The quality of the acting might be the same, set design, everything, but you just knew that it wasn't shot on 35 millimeter film. That has completely vanished. Mm-hmm. And the person watching our film, would have no idea it wasn't made by, a studio.
Miramax or one of them.
Or if they do find a difference, maybe it's they would say, like, I don't recognize these actors. Who are these people? Yeah. Or the fact that it's a weird movie, because you don't see a lot of weird movies being produced by Netflix.
Well, back in the 60s and the 70s, it was what I referred to them as, and you remember, Thomas, they were called the B movies.
Oh yeah, sure.
I mean, I couldn't tell you how many horror movies I watched. I mean, the first Godzilla was actually a B movie, and it ranked up there. And then they started churning out horror movie after horror movie, all on these B movie reels. Low production cost. You got one little guy in an outfit trampling across some little set, made out of cardboard. And I mean, it was just cool as all get out. And dude, they made money.
And part of the aesthetic was that feel of the 16 millimeter, sort of like with Halloween, Evil Dead, Friday the 13th, all those movies. They were made really cheap, and but the aesthetic kind of served the story, and so you could get away with it. And it's kind of like, what does the audience expect when they watch a horror film or a B movie? Mm-hmm. Just give them what they want. Yeah, And so you're not having to, with those movies, compete with, Indiana Jones or E.T. or whatever the big movie was when those were coming out.
Yeah, but with today's technology, I mean, you're not even, the quality of it is right there with the big names. Yeah. And you can all do it at home. Have your editing, do everything you want to do, and just...
The barrier to entry is gone in terms of, like, can I make something that's passable as a film?
Right.
But the challenge with that is when those barriers come down, everybody's doing it. And so it becomes one of these things where to stand out is much easier.
Well, the quality of the story.
That's it. It's the story. You still have control over that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And then it's just a mastery of the skills of the craft itself that set you apart, which is, it's a good place to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Rather than, I'd prefer that be the barrier to entry rather than just gatekeepers based on production quality.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one thing I did like about Streets. I mean, it was just, everything was put together great. I could follow you on the direction, the way you was making, you were taking me through the movie, and that's what I like. If I'm going to sit there and I'm going to eat popcorn and have a soda and I'm going to watch it, I want to be taken somewhere. I want to, give me some intrigue, give me something to pull me into it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like back when we were younger, and, the big thing was read a book. They taught us all when we were younger, you need to read a book. It's like a story in your mind. But when I can sit and watch a story and it pulls me in also, that's a great feat.
Well, another thing that I appreciate about it is the writing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't insult my intelligence.
Oh yeah,
it's witty. It's well thought out. I mean, without making Jason's head swell up. I mean, the fact of the matter is I thoroughly enjoy and appreciate his writing technique, because you can walk through each scene and hear dialogue that is intelligible.
Yeah.
Dialogue that's got a humorous beats and yet serious beats as well in the same scene, and it meshes and melds together in a way that is not even remotely contrived. It's very natural.
Yeah.
But again, you don't walk away feeling like, I just got insulted here.
Yeah. Well, some of the movies that I've seen, which I really, really appreciated about what you did with Streets, I don't know exactly the terminology that they use, but you did not use too much background music, kind of like droning in, trying to get an emotional feel into it. It did it naturally.
No, that's good to hear, because you don't know those things unless people say them.
Right.
So I'm glad to hear that.
I notice everything when,
Like
when
it
I'm
wasn't
watching.
music heavy.
Yeah.
It was actually letting the dialogue, the scene set up and so forth, take you through, as opposed
'cause
to
you
try
know-
to manipulate you through music, which
Exactly.
is still a great thing to have, great music. And I thought the gentleman that did our soundtrack and whatnot did a phenomenal job. He's a local Nashville composer as well.
Cool.
But you know what's interesting? I think Lori deserves credit there, because I'm tempted as a director, when a scene is playing slowly for me, add music to speed it up. And she would say, just trust it.
Yeah.
You don't have to augment this.
Oh, dude, she did a phenomenal job then. Because, I mean, it was, how you're watching some movies and then, okay, here's a little action sequence, and there's always, you get that immediate feel of music.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you didn't let me savor anything, and you're dumping salt on it already.
Right.
It's almost like the thing with curse words. Anything you overuse, the audience becomes numb to it. And those music cues that tell you you're supposed to be sad or excited or something, exciting is happening.
Yeah.
You get so accustomed to it that it just drowns out. It might as well not be there.
Yeah. Why? It's over-sensorizing?
Yeah, you get
Sounds right.
desensitized.
Over-sensorizing? It's I don't know. I mean, like when all those
Overstimulated.
rom-coms came out, it was like you'd always have this sappy music, and, it would make you well up. It would make you go, oh, man, that is so sad. But take that music away and let it come more natural. To me, that means more. To me,
the music should always be the icing on the cake. It shouldn't be the main point of the scene.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm somebody who loves music, and I love incorporating music into my work. But if the scene doesn't work without the soundtrack, then your scene needs help.
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit. I mean, sometimes Hollywood does. They overdo it way too much.
Well, a lot of it's formulaic.
Oh, yeah.
They get a formula. Okay, this is the way we do it. Bang, bang,
Well,
bang.
it's just like in business. It's like creating a mold. It's like you need this because this works. Right. So you just keep doing it. But you do it so much, people are like, ugh, not this again.
I mean, there's legitimate reasoning for it. We get that. There's all kinds of
Well,
data.
that's why they pay study groups.
Yeah, there's data to support everything you're doing. But on the other side of the coin, is it really doing exactly what you want to begin with? I don't know.
To me, it ain't worth it sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're adding stuff to just fill in something, it takes away from what you actually created.
Right.
So it's kind of like, okay, here's a Band-Aid. Here's a Band-Aid. Oh, wait a minute. Let me kiss your boo-boo and get you on going. Yeah. No, give me something that's got some meat and potatoes to it. And, I mean, that's one thing about old John Wayne movies, man. I mean, it boom, strike. There you go. It was what it was.
Right. But again, it's like insulting your audience.
Yeah.
With disingenuous maneuvers, if you will.
Hey, that's the word I was looking
they're
for.
Too stupid to get it if you didn't do something to point them in the right direction.
It's like obvious of like the jump scare. It's like the cat jumps out and they have to do that violin shriek or you won't know it's scary.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even though it's funny as hell when the cat jumps. So, I mean, we do that for fun.
That's right. You got a couple of them floating around here.
Just one now.
Just one?
Yeah.
What happened to the other one?
She had a disease.
Okay. Well,
And unfortunately,
leave it at that or what?
Yeah, we're going to leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
I get attached too easy.
Okay. I didn't know you were a softie that way.
I am.
Yeah, that's all right.
To certain things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just the way I am.
It's all right. That's why we love you, David.
That guy with your voice and your tattoos talking about how you love this cat. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I need more tattoos. If I can get more people to contribute to the
There
Big
you go.
Boy
You can
Toy
afford
Fund.
them, yeah.
How much you got in there so far? It's heavy. It's heavy.
It's all pennies. Pennies are heavy, dude.
Pennies are heavy, yeah. But remember, it
If
takes pennies to make
No,
dollars.
you know what's full of bitcoins. That's
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is.
If it was full of
Oh, yeah,
cash,
nice.
it wouldn't be that heavy. But you put all that, what are pennies made out of anymore? Steel copper and something
Yeah,
else?
they're not copper anymore.
Uh,
Maybe just a
Did
copper
your
coating.
mom ever have a swear jar?
No.
Yeah, my mom had a swear jar. I think she filled it up, but
Yeah.
it was like every time you said it like a curse word, you'd have to put money into it.
Yeah.
And my son was telling me, my son's 14, he's a typical teenager. He was telling me some story about something that happened at school. And he used the word like so many times in this short conversation. I said, I'm going to start a swear jar, but for every time you use the word like, you got to put $1 into it. And he went on his phone. He's like, synonyms for the word like. I'm like, that's my kid.
There you go. Yeah. It's not stupid.
Yeah.
Google is a great thing, but then Google, it's a scapegoat. It'll get you out of trouble.
Potentially.
Google
Yay.
owns YouTube, which we're on right now. So we'll,
Oh, yes. I love Google. Yes, it's great.
And YouTube.
All right, guys, we've done almost 3 hours of this. So,
Yeah. You're going to have a part 1 and a part 2.
the
I mean,
lady.
you're going to have to split it because nobody's going to sit for 3 hours.
No, I'm uploading the whole thing,
Good Lord.
and I'm keeping the bathroom break in too because
Forgive
you
us.
started
Sorry
that.
about that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that to you.
I need to learn some magic tricks. So next time you guys take a potty break, I can dazzle
There you
the.
Did you hear him? He was sitting in here going, "Yeah, and we got a great setup here. We got 3 cameras," and I was just
I knew
like,
he could handle it.
Well, I wish there was a camera seeing what we're seeing because we can actually watch ourselves. It's really cool, but you can't see it.
"I've thought about that."
Yeah, turn one of the cameras around so you can see kind of what the setup is nice.
It's a nice setup. Yeah.
Hey, it's fun and just something I dealt with, and I built up to this. Just I don't know,
Inch by inch. Anything's a cinch.
pretty much.
And again, if anybody wants to donate to the Streets We Hunt Part
Yeah.
2
Part
fund,
2, yes.
contact David or go to streetsofficial.com
There you
and
go.
leave us a comment.
I'll go to Streets Official. I'm going to take a percentage.
There you go. Sounds like a winner.
Yep. So everybody, want to appreciate our guests. I've had a lot of fun. Hope you
Yeah,
guys
thanks
have.
for having us.
I
Again,
hope some people
appreciate it.
learn some stuff. I mean, we got a lot of the technical stuff and how to create and how to do this and how to do that. And you could just do a YouTube thing where how to do this, how to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I got a quick story. Years ago, I took a tractor and 2 trailers, set of pups, to a school
Mm-hmm.
that my daughter went to.
Yeah.
So the kids could get up and climb up in the truck and the trailers and so forth, right?
Yeah. They still do that.
Okay. All right. After that happened, a couple of days later, my daughter brought home a packet of cards that the kids had made. These are young kids, 3rd grade, whatever, 4th grade.
Yeah.
And they'd colored, on these cards, and a lot of them they drew, freehand my truck and the trailers and so forth. And inside the card, thank you, Mr. Marino, for yada, yada.
Yeah.
One kid, he did a real good job of illustrating the truck and the trailers and stuff. And inside, I can't remember his name, Jacob, I think it comes to mind. He said, "Dear Mr. Marino, thank you for putting up with us." And I thought that was so cute. I'm thinking, yes, these kids are, out of the mouth of babes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for putting up with us. Yeah.
Yeah, because they all want to honk the horn
Yeah,
and do all
yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And it was great fun. I enjoyed it. I'd do that in a heartbeat.
That's a lot of
If
fun.
anybody sat through all 3 hours of this, I'll send you money.
Honest to God. Yeah.
Hush,
You're
damn.
a saint. That's all I got to say. Yeah.
We will put you on the I survived list.
Right. We'll get a T-shirt made up for you. Right.
All right, guys. We're going to get out of here. Thomas, Jason, appreciate it. Glad you guys had fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll do it again, man. I mean,
That'd be
I
good.
love doing this. And,
Great to be on the David Bradley Show.
Yeah, well,
Telling you.
I'm hoping somebody learned something and had a little bit of fun, and if nothing else, helped you with your workout or your drive or whatever you was doing.
Exactly. Yep. Amen to that.
And remember, we're just having a conversation.
Right.
All right. We'll see y'all later. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.